I came across Think and Grow Rich in 2004. During that time, and this is 20 years ago now, during that time, I was in $50,000 debt. See, growing up, my family didn't have a lot of money, and I always wanted to have money around me. I wanted to do the things I wanted to do, buy whatever car I wanted to buy, dress how I wanted to dress, go out with friends, etc. And so when I was 15 years old, I started working, and I worked in all these different factory jobs, and I would work with them till I was around 19 years old. And around that time, I got a job at a warehouse. And this company also had a head office. It's a Fortune 500 company, TJX companies. In Canada, there were Winners, HomeSense, which are part of the brand. So I worked at the warehouse, and during that time, I was earning not that much. And I was working, aiming to figure out what I wanted to do next. I knew I wanted to get into technology because I did grow up with computers. So I ended up seeing postings for their head office. And then, long story short, I ended up getting a job at the head office. And I started to earn more money. Now, as I started to earn more money, I started to spend more money. As a matter of fact, I was spending more money than I was earning. And in 2002, I bought this Acura RSX Type S, brand new, which I took a loan for to buy it. Plus, I had credit card debt. But that didn't bother me at the time because I was going out, I was having fun, I was doing the things that I wanted to do. Now, in 2004, while my car was parked in the parking lot of the office building in the parking structure, after work, I realized that someone had actually slashed my tires because there was a big gash in both the tires, and then there was this metal rod sticking in one of the tires. So till this day, I don't know who it was, what was the reason behind it, but I had to buy new tires, and these tires weren't cheap. So I looked at my credit card, and I realized that I was almost maxed out. I also realized that all the money that I was making was going towards fueling my lifestyle and also paying off my debts, the car loan, the credit cards, etc. And then I realized that something has to be done about this because I literally didn't have the money at that point to pay for the 2 new tires. So I ended up actually finding a way to pay for the tires. But then I was watching this seminar online. And the host of the seminar mentioned Think and Grow Rich. And the title of the book caught my attention. Think and Grow Rich. I felt that it made a lot of sense because I realized that my thinking patterns in relation to money, in relation to life, brought me to where I was at that point. And so maybe this book can change the way that I think in a way that will get me out of this situation forever. So what ended up happening was I read the book and I created my very first definite chief aim, which was to get out of that, at that time, $50,000 debt. I followed the instructions in the book to the letter, and it actually worked. Not only did I get out of $50,000 debt, money started showing up in unexpected ways. And also, I ended up saving up and buying my first house. And what was interesting was when I went to go see the property, when they were showing the property, there was one book on the coffee table, and it was Think and Grow Rich. It turns out the owner of the place was in merchant services doing sales, and he also loved the book Think and Grow Rich. So over the years, until this day, I still read Think and Grow Rich over and over again. As a matter of fact, I'm reading it with you as we go through the day. I actually read it yesterday, and I took some notes, and we're going to go through each chapter. Because not only did it get me out of $50,000 debt, buy my first house, it also helped me rise up in corporate, move into a position where I was about to go into management or go with what my heart desired, which was to start my own business, which I did. I left in 2009 and built that to success by applying the principles in Think and Grow Rich. 2013, I transitioned into consulting. That business grew. I also started this YouTube channel, which also turned into a business, and that grew. And till this day, I still visit the book Think and Grow Rich. In the general introduction section, chapter 1, he says, "Truly, thoughts are things, and powerful things at that, when They are mixed with definiteness of purpose, persistence, and a burning desire for their translation into riches or other material objects. So that's the key. Thoughts are things when they are mixed with definiteness of purpose, persistence, and a burning desire for their translation into riches. So we may witness all kinds of thoughts in our mind. And if the thoughts are not in harmony with the desires of our heart, we can let them pass, let them be. Do not identify with them. He says, success comes to those who become success conscious. So here we're speaking about success consciousness, which is a state of mind, which for me, I brought myself up to a certain degree of success in contrast to where I started in the journey in my teenage years. Yet I still had this relationship with money where I wasn't able to do three things, which I teach all throughout the channel. Number one, continuously earn a lavish, steady, dependable income. Now, I was earning pretty well there, but my income increased over the years as a result of applying this book. So we want to continually increase it if we would like to. Then number two, have a wonderful lifestyle, because I still enjoy a wonderful lifestyle, whatever that means to you. And then also, we want to be able to save a certain amount of money and then be able to invest that for the long term. And that's what all changed for me when I read this book. I was earning all right money, but after reading this book, I developed what he calls success consciousness when it comes to prosperity, money aspect of prosperity, because we can define prosperity in many different ways. So what happened was I ended up building this relationship where I got really good with earning more money and increasing that, having a wonderful lifestyle. I travel a lot. I do a lot of things. I had a lot of wonderful experience over the last 20 years, and it continues to increase more so each day because I enjoy my life and I love to experience life. And so I also like to save and invest for the long term. And through the power of compounding interest, you can get wonderful returns when you save and invest. So that's what I consider success consciousness when it comes to money. Being able to earn what you want to earn, enjoy a wonderful lifestyle, and save and invest so that continues to grow for long-term wealth. He says, another weakness found in altogether too many people is the habit of measuring everything and everyone by their own impressions and beliefs. Some who will read this will believe that no one can think and grow rich. They cannot think in terms of riches because their thought habits have been steeped in poverty, want, misery, failure, and defeat. And no shame and condemnation there. One is simply identified with these beliefs in relation to poverty, misery, failure, defeat. Yet, through the power of applying autosuggestion and understanding the subconscious mind and applying this philosophy, one actually releases identification to these beliefs so they can be how they truly desire to be, live how they truly desire to live, and prove to themselves that thoughts are things, and powerful things, when they are mixed with definiteness of purpose, persistence, and a burning desire for the translation into riches, or any other material object, or any area of your life, whatever life experience that you desire. Even though this book focuses more on getting rich or financial prosperity, material wealth, it can also be applied to relationships or different areas of your life. Because what is really going on is what we're thinking feelingly upon is impressing the subconscious mind. And in some way, somehow, the infinite intelligence within the subconscious mind takes that and externalizes it for you. All of a sudden, ideas, hunches, and inspirations arise in your mind. Mental clarity. You know what to do, what not to do. Opportunities show up in unexpected ways. That is the power of applying the principle of this book. The power is within, and that power is the one cause, I am, as stated in the Bible. And there's no other cause. So what do we say of the I am within? That's what we're thinking feelingly upon. Do we think feelingly that we already have the prosperity, the success that we desire. We already have it. Because as we've been discussing, and I'll link to Sunday's video where we elaborate on it, I'll link in the description to it. We talk about how desire means you already have. So I had this burning desire to, you could say I was angry at that time. Somebody slashed my tires. I didn't think I was doing anyone wrong. I had this anger inside of me. So I transmuted it into success consciousness and experienced the life that I desire. And thus, you could do that with any form of emotion. Any emotion may be transmuted. Think of artists and creatives who grow up in really rough environments, situations where others might find unbearable, and they may have anger and a lot of frustration within. They don't suppress or repress that energy. Emotions are energy in motion. They transmute it towards a service to others, and they build successful businesses, or they channel it towards a career, and they move up in their career, and they transmute what we can call seeming defeat or seeming failure or seeming misery into success consciousness. That's because, as he says here, you are the master of your fate, the captain of your soul. The ether in which this little earth floats, in which we move and have our being, is a form of energy moving at an inconceivably high rate of vibration. And that the ether is filled with a form of universal power which adapts itself to the nature of the thoughts we hold in our minds and influences us in natural ways to transmute our thoughts into their physical equivalent. So we could say, upon connecting the dots looking backwards, that it was quite logical. We'll say, Joseph did this, he did that, he moved up in corporate, he built his IT business, he built his client base, he hired people, he did sales, he created products and services that were needed and useful. Very logical. Yet, what actually happened was I changed my relationship to the one cause within. All of those expressions or those experiences, we can call them bridge of incidences, or we can call them manifestations of the different aspects of the journey to actualizing the vision, were the result of thinking and growing rich, accepting that I already am that. Chapter 2 is on desire. He says, every person who wins in any undertaking must be willing to burn his ships and cut all sources of retreat. Only by so doing can one be sure of maintaining that state of mind known as a burning desire to win, essential to success. It means acceptance that your end is the way that it is. So burning the bridges doesn't need to be looked at as a force-based thing to do. It means in your mind's eye, acknowledging that you already are the person that you desire to be. The energy is transmuted on the journey to actualizing the vision. For example, the energy for me during building my IT business was transmuted over during my sales calls. I was very inspired. I was very motivated. The desire was there, yet it wasn't experienced as craving or suffering. It was experienced as a creative transformation or transmutation, which we're going to talk about in a moment, from one way of relating to emotions to another. And it was geared towards a service to others, because I created products and services that were needed and useful. They were beneficial for the businesses. And I knew that with all my heart. And so my goal was to bring that to their awareness, have conversations with them in a mutually harmonious way, and help them recognize that my product and service benefits them. And so the burning desire fueled me every day. I was excited to wake up every morning. I didn't feel like I was tired, procrastinating, or none of those things, because I did not repress or suppress or deny the desire. Rather, I transmuted it to the service to others, and then I actualized the success for my business. He says the method by which desire for riches can be transmuted into its financial equivalent consists of 6 definite practical steps. Number 1, Fix in your mind the exact amount of money you desire. It's not sufficient to merely say, I want plenty of money. Be definite as to the amount. There is a psychological reason for definiteness, which will be described in a subsequent chapter. So I've worked with this model here. We're going to go through it, or the method in which we create an autosuggestion to impress on the subconscious mind in many different ways. I recommend finding a way that works best for you. This is one that he proposed, which I applied verbatim, and it worked to get myself out of $50,000 debt. What I will also say is that over the years, I modified it. I made it my own. I have my own style of doing it. So I still create a definite chief aim, and every definite chief aim that I created over the years has been actualized, and I've created many since 2004. And till this day, I still carry a card around with my definite chief aim. I just modified. So it's modified to imply what? Autosuggestion. Recognizing that you already have what you desire. Number 2, he says, determine exactly what you intend to give in return for the money you desire. So for me, it's products and services that are needed and useful, or at that time, whatever it was that I was doing, whatever business that I was involved with, providing quality, quantity, spirit of service, or if you're a real estate agent, provide the best real estate experience for the clients, etc. Number 3, establish a definite date when you intend to possess the money you desire. Now, I've worked with this over the years. I've applied dates, and it works. I've also not applied dates, and it also works. I actualize the vision. It's totally up to you, whatever you feel resonant with. If one has too much resistance towards adding a date, I recommend not adding a date. If one is fine adding the date and you feel inspired by adding a date, which I used to do in the earlier stages, then totally fine. Number 4, create a definite plan for carrying out your desire and begin at once, whether you are ready or not, to put this plan into action. Now, here's the interesting thing that I find. The moment you accept that you already are that which you desire to be, you create a statement that implies, and you read it to yourself, you accept that you already are that. An idea shows up in mind. Could be right away, could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I always know what to do next. Perfect example was when I was building my IT business. I realized this also after applying Think and Grow Rich. In corporate, I would have all these tasks, and I noticed that when I completed each task and I went about it from a state of flow or certainty, at the time I didn't really make flow a priority. Now I encourage it more so. But knowing that each step was going to lead to the outcome, just committing to that step, seeing it all the way to completion. Sure enough, the next step showed up, the next step showed up. And there were logical steps that I knew that I was going to take. And there were also ways that showed up unexpectedly that contributed. All of a sudden, I would get a promotion, or unexpected income would show up in ways that I didn't think about. All I know is that everybody knows the next step. And we take that step and we commit to that step, whatever that step may be. And one could even say that it might be no step. For example, let's say someone commits to a vision of actualizing business success. And they realize that the step that they were going to take, which was to do this other task, which was going to lead to whatever outcome, is no longer relevant, so they don't end up making that move. Plans, hunches, and inspirations are received within. As we apply the philosophy, what happens is the mind gets purified, and we allow thoughts, ideas, and plans from infinite intelligence to be received within. We apply them, and they produce success. We may also find inspiration when I notice certain books, videos, or people show up, sharing with me insights. I remember at one point when I was really getting into the depth of this philosophy, reading this book often and applying it every day. I remember connecting with this one guy. He ended up teaching me so many things. I used to call him on the phone, and we used to talk for hours. And he would love to teach about business, mindset, and applying this information, because he was applying it for many years. And prior to that, I didn't know anyone who read Think and Grow Rich. Yet after I started reading Think and Grow Rich, more people started showing up within my awareness who read Think and Grow Rich and applied the philosophy. And I've met with and worked with many over the years who have produced all kinds of financial success as a result of applying Think and Grow Rich. He says, write out a clear, concise statement of the amount of money you intend to acquire. Name the time limit for its acquisition. State what you intend to give in return for the money, and describe clearly the plan through which you intend to accumulate it. Number 6, read your written statement aloud twice daily, once just before retiring at night, and once after arising in the morning. As you read, see and feel and believe yourself already in possession of the money. This is the key. As you read, see and feel and believe yourself already in possession of the money. So we don't look to the visible world for proof, validation, confirmation, or evidence during this act. We disentangle our mind from the evidence of the senses, and we don't put meaning onto the world, which is, we could say, subconscious meaning from past beliefs. Instead, we accept that we already have what we desire. So again, as you read, see and feel and believe yourself already in possession of the money. Why this works is it impresses your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind, we'll get into the subconscious mind in a moment, he's got a chapter dedicated to it, is a place where impressions are stored. That's where beliefs are stored, memories, impressions are stored there. And those beliefs are playing out over and over again. And if we don't bring awareness to these beliefs and release identification to them, they could play out again and again and again, as whether we call them desirable or undesirable experiences. Here we're impressing upon the subconscious mind the fact that our vision is realized in imagination. That impression then corresponds some way, somehow, in ways that we might not know, ways past finding out, as said in the Bible, with infinite intelligence that takes that impression and some way, somehow, transforms everything to manifest that vision. It even directs what you do and don't do, as mentioned earlier. He says, it is important that you follow the instructions described in these 6 steps. It is especially important that you observe and follow the instructions in the 6th paragraph. Again, it's this one right here. Read your written statement aloud twice daily, once just before retiring at night, and once after arising in the morning. What I ended up eventually doing was recording it on loop and playing it over and over again when I would fall asleep. Now what I do is I simply carry this card around me, and I find that it works perfectly. He says, you may complain that it is impossible for you to see yourself in possession of money before you actually have it. Here's where a burning desire will come to your aid. If you truly desire money so keenly that your desire is an obsession, you'll have no difficulty in convincing yourself that you will acquire it. It's to accept that desire means having. I've met many like this who, for whatever the reason, suppressed and denied desire, and then as a result of it, they ended up in situations where they don't really even have a desire to accomplish anything or experience anything in life. What's being taught here is that you can take the desires from your heart and accept them as fulfilled. When you truly desire something, including transformation in whatever shape or form, acknowledge that you already have that transformation. And if one ever feels discouraged on the way to actualizing the vision, the burning desire comes to your aid. Like, for example, when you do sales or any initiative in business. If on the journey one feels discouraged or bored, pessimistic, or they feel that, whatever, identification with negative thinking or beliefs, that burning desire stimulates them back into the acknowledgement that their vision is reality. And they're compelled into doing whatever the thing is, the sales calls, etc. I met many who are very powerful salespeople, very successful. They earn millions of dollars in sales. And they have no qualms about picking up the phone and making phone calls. Some are door-to-door sales, or some do business-to-business. And all of them have this burning desire to overcome whatever kind of rejections or objections they experience. So the burning desire is playing with the desire, playfully transmuting it, channeling it over to a service to others. He says, money consciousness means that the mind has become so thoroughly saturated with the desire for money that one can see oneself already in possession of it. So he used the word desire as an obsession. It's more of desire as in stimulating the vision, acknowledging that you already have it, and on the journey, remaining inspired along the way. So I personally would use the word inspired. Every adversity, he says, brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. So again, related to my story. I had the burning desire since I was a child to not be poor. I come from a background where we didn't have the money, and I saw a lot of people around me that were suffering as a result of not being able to afford this and that. And they didn't know how to bring those riches into their lives, yet they had a desire to do it. Yet if they only took that desire and transmuted it into an acceptance of having the end and a service to others, they would be able to do it, like many that I've spoken with over the years and I've worked with as clients that were able to do it. So the adversities that once had happened in my life or whoever's life may be transmuted, that energy behind it, the anger, the frustration, the whatever, the desire behind it to be in another state, can be transmuted. Thus, it brings an advantage. So when I was growing up, I had that desire. It stayed with me. And that desire fueled me all throughout life. Didn't suppress or deny the desire or repress it. I transmuted it. That's the key of working with this book. It's a nuance point. Transmutation of emotions. Now, some might find it difficult or challenging. Yet, you get better at it with practice. He says, to all these, I wish to convey the thought that all achievement, no matter what may be its nature or its purpose, must begin with an intense, burning desire for something definite. Through some strange and powerful principle of mental chemistry, which she has never divulged, nature wraps up in the impulse of strong desire, that something which recognizes no such word as impossible and accepts no such reality as failure. So remember how you brought up persistence earlier? It's easier to persist when you accept that what you desire is yours, and you're not going to take no for an answer. You're not going to take rejection, because no or rejection when it comes to sales is optimization data. For example, if a prospect says no in sales, you can go back and modify your product or service, your offer, your packaging, find ways to overcome the objections, to help them realize that there is a benefit for them. Maybe you didn't communicate it to them. We take the responsibility fully. That happens when someone remains inspired on the journey to actualize the vision. Yet if they don't have that inspiration, their mind can start to drift on whatever kind of things that have nothing to do with actualizing a vision, but maybe complaining or whatever kind of just simply identifying with these beliefs from the past, which we can release identification to. Chapter 3 is on faith. He says, visualization of and belief in attainment of desire. Visualization of, as in you already have it, and belief in the attainment of the desire, as in you know it's yours. And faith, thus we can say, is loyalty to the unseen reality. He says faith is the head chemist of the mind. When faith is blended with the vibration of thought, the subconscious mind instantly picks up that vibration, translates it into its spiritual equivalent, and transmits it to infinite intelligence, as in the case with prayer. So, as we always discuss, prayer is acknowledgement of that which you already have. Anytime you pray, pray as though you already have it, and it's yours. He says, from this statement, you will understand that the subconscious mind will translate into its physical equivalent a thought impulse of a negative or destructive nature just as readily as it will act upon thought impulses of a positive or constructive nature. This accounts for the strange phenomena which so many millions of people experience, referred to as misfortune or bad luck. Now, this is key because a person may look at their environment and say, the result of this or that is because of, and they'll point to some visible causes, some external cause, or some kind of superstition like misfortune or bad luck. When they apply this philosophy and bring awareness to these beliefs and release identification to them, they'll actually see that these kinds of experiences don't happen. Then they realize that, wait, I'm always praying, you could say, when I imagine something that I already am that thing, or when I imagine myself being it, whatever way, be it a positive way or negative way, however you label it, that you're essentially affirming that on the subconscious mind. And so we have our vision, we crafted it in chapter 2. We want to think feelingly of the vision. That's why it's encouraged to read it in the morning and at night. And also, whatever in relation to the vision, on the journey to actualizing the vision, from the premise of already having it if it shows up. Perfect example in business. If the numbers are fluctuating in a way that one may, and maybe many would consider that as business moving towards failure, we don't identify with that meaning. It's not to say one is not looking at the experiences or experiencing the experiences. Rather, they're aware of the meaning, what they're thinking in relation to the experiences. And they practice faith by acknowledging that whatever those appearances or experiences are, they do not determine if a person's going to achieve their vision, actualize it or not. Only the person can determine that. They're the ones that have all the power. All power has been given to you, as stated in the Hermetica, which, by the way, when I read Think and Grow Rich, the word transmutation brought me to the book The Kabbalion. The Kabbalion brought me to the Hermetic philosophy. And I started to track back this information to its origins. And so if someone looks at an appearance and says, well, this means this means that, at that moment, they can acknowledge that they're the only ones assigning meaning to that experience, and it determines what appears next. For example, if they look at the fluctuation in their business numbers, and they say to themselves, you know what, it appears this way, but there are ways. Ideas, hunches, and inspirations start to show up. I can assure you, I've experienced this many times. I've seen business numbers, whatever metrics fluctuate, but then even if the world saw them, they'll say, well, Joseph, it looks like there's a recession happening and it doesn't look like that many people are buying IT services. And I started my business during that time, which was called the recession, 2009. It still worked out because I didn't believe in that kind of meaning in relation to my business outcome. Regardless of whatever's happening in the marketplace, I'll acquire the amount of clients that I want to acquire. It's not like nobody was buying IT services at the time. People were still requiring IT services. Even those businesses that were, let's say, cutting down on the IT staff still had IT service needs. I found those businesses. Why? Because my mind was oriented towards that aspect of reality, which is where success already is. So pray as though you already have. Faith is essentially walking in a way of acknowledgement that you already have in relation to whatever appears, and denying the evidence of the senses. And by that I mean very specifically, the senses, what the evidence of the senses is made visible through imagination. So we're the ones essentially generating experiences through our beliefs. And so when the experiences are witnessed a certain way, we can call that, let's say if we call it inharmonious, we can in that moment realize that we're the ones assigning that meaning. Abide back in the stillness, go back into the stillness, and reimagine it how you desire to imagine it. That's where the burning desire comes in, because if you didn't have a burning desire, one might just settle for things being that way, which is, again, the way they imagine it is, but we can call it an undesirable way. Instead, what is being referred to here is allow your vision to actualize. Because once you have pressed it on the subconscious mind through autosuggestion, you're on the journey to actualizing it. You're still on what appears as a journey to actualizing it. Are you walking by faith and not by sight, as stated in the Bible? He says, this is an appropriate place at which to suggest again that you may benefit by passing on to your subconscious mind any desire which you wish translated into its physical or monetary equivalent in a state of expectancy or belief that the transmutation will actually take place. The transmutation will actually take place. In other words, we don't concern ourselves of how it's going to take place. That's left up to infinite intelligence. We simply accept that's the way it is, the way we imagine it is. That's expectancy. It's not a force-based thing. Faith is not considered force. It's simple acknowledgement of already having that which you desire, remaining like that, abiding as that on the journey to actualizing the vision. Now, if one experiences challenges and it doesn't feel as simple as that, as it did for me in the earlier stages, it didn't feel as simple as that. I simply brought awareness to the beliefs that the emotions were revealing by having a conversation with myself, discovering these beliefs, and releasing identification to them. He says the subconscious mind will transmute into its physical equivalent by the most direct and practical media available, any order which is given to it in a state of belief or faith that the order will be carried out. He says, surely enough, it has been stated to give a starting point from which one may, through experiment and practice, acquire the ability to mix faith with any order given to the subconscious mind. Perfection will come through practice, as mentioned. See, it is ideal to not be identified with the appearances in a way that disempowers you, that limits you. There is no power outside. There's only one cause. It is within. I am. It says in the Bible. This cause is not only the cause, but also the substance of the phenomena of life. Arises as and appears as all that is arisen through your imagination. It's done for you. And so that's what's being taught in this book. Again, you track back to the origins of this information, and you'll see this is what they were saying. He says it in his way in this book, and all these books say it in their own way. It says, it is a well-known fact that one comes finally to believe whatever one repeats to oneself. So even if you don't believe it right away, our autosuggestion, what I'm sharing with you right now, you don't have to believe me. You don't have to take my word for it. We put it to the test. Try it out for ourselves. I tried it out. I remember there was one section in the book where he said, if you believe that money is, and I noted it for discussion, money is a result of hard work alone perish the thought. I almost didn't want to read the book anymore because I was thinking to myself, you know what? I come from a background where I didn't have money, and the way that I saw people around me actually earning money was through hard work. So I just repeatedly did that. And I've worked very hard from when I was 15 years old. So, and this book is trying to tell me that there's another way. But you know what? I kept my mind open. I didn't realize that I had this subconscious mind. And this subconscious mind was storing these beliefs. And these beliefs were playing out as theater, as what I do and don't do, how I go about doing things. Upon bringing awareness to the fact that this subconscious mind, which we all have a subconscious mind, stores these beliefs, whatever our beliefs may be, it's very apparent in how we relate to the world. We can't lie to ourselves. We just witness the kind of experiences we have, and we know what we're imagining. We know what we're believing. And again, no shame and condemnation. This book says that we have all the power to change those beliefs at any moment through autosuggestion. And even if one does not believe their autosuggestion is right away, because I found what he was saying unbelievable in the earlier stages, and I also found that my autosuggestion was, let's say, not as believable. But yet there was a burning desire to accomplish it. So I had no choice, you could say, because I didn't want to live that way, where I was earning good money and also limiting myself from earning more. But then I was spending everything. I was still in debt. And my tires got slashed and I couldn't pay for the tires. I didn't want to put myself in a situation like that again. I said enough of that. And I applied the book. And it worked. So the repetition, as he says here, it is a well-known fact that one comes finally to believe whatever one repeats to oneself, whether the statement be true or false. Now, people go around perhaps repeating statements to themselves that they watched on TV or whatever. That is not even helpful for them. I did that, certainly, for an extended period of my life. I don't do it anymore. I recommend not doing that. If you're going to repeat something to yourself over and over again within, might as well do it in a way that empowers you, or more accurately put, helps you acknowledge that you already have the power. All power is now. And it can only appear in the external as a form of what we imagined it to appear as. Yet it's sourced from within. Because let's look at this for a moment. If I ask you right now, do you know anything outside of your consciousness? The logical answer to that, the obvious answer to that is no. You have not experienced anything outside of your consciousness. You know of people, you know of experiences, you know of environment, yet you've experienced it all within your consciousness. So, if you're experiencing it all within your consciousness, and the outer world is reflecting that which you're experiencing in your consciousness, what if you change those beliefs in which you experience consciousness that way? Because the subconscious mind is a lens. We can say we put beliefs over there or imaginal activity on that lens, and we witness the light of consciousness reflected as the moonlight of this world. Consciousness is the light. It's pure. You're pure consciousness. And you witness the mind, the contents of mind, the body, experiences, etc. And most on autopilot, we could say, through subconscious beliefs. So, if I don't believe it right away, that's fine. No shame and condemnation. The repetition again and again. That's one of the reasons why I like reading this book. As a matter of fact, when I'm reading this book right now, and we're having this discussion, I'm getting even more insights. Because when you read the same thing and you go and apply it, and you go back to the same thing, provided that it is, let's say, very deep information, this information that he consolidated here goes back to the Bible, the Corpus Hermeticum. I've tracked this information back. It goes back. And people have been using it for centuries to experience the kind of life that they desire. But then there were people all throughout the centuries who didn't know about this information. Or when they came across this information, they were like me in the earlier stages. They said, that's no way that this could work. We want to keep a little bit of an open mind. And if the experiences in life are not desirable, then what does we have to lose? Just try something. Try it out and prove it to yourself. Then, once you prove it to yourself, you'll see it gets easier and easier to apply this information. Essentially, we are not believing the evidence of the senses to determine what to think next. We think for ourselves. So again, he says, it is a well-known fact that one comes finally to believe whatever one repeats to oneself, whether the statement be true or false. If one repeats a lie even over and over, they will eventually accept the lie as truth. Moreover, they will believe it to be the truth. So the question is, in relation to beliefs, are we identified with beliefs that are helpful or not? If they're not helpful, don't identify with them. We don't have to go around repeating things to ourselves because you read it somewhere or you're looking around what other people are saying and then assigning meaning to what they're saying in a way that we think feelingly upon that and impress the subconscious mind in a way that's not helpful or desirable. Here what's being suggested is live how you desire to live. I believe that desires come from God. Where else do they come from? They come from within. Everything is sourced from within. Only God, as mentioned, appears and appears as all that is animated through your imagination. Every place that the sole of your foot shall tread upon, that I have given unto you. God, and only God, gives and fulfills desires. In the book, God is referred to as infinite intelligence. So you could say, infinite intelligence gives and fulfills your desires, appears as, and animates all that appears to actualize what you desire. Listen to yourself and trust yourself. He says, thoughts which one deliberately places in their own mind and encourages with sympathy, and with which they mix with any or more of the emotions, constitute the motivating forces which direct and control their every movement, act, and deed. So he shares the self-confidence formula. Let's go through it. Number one, first, so we read this to ourselves. I know that I have the ability to achieve the object of my definite purpose in life. Therefore, I demand of myself persistent, continuous action towards its attainment, and I here and now promise to render such action. Second, I realize the dominating thoughts of my mind will eventually reproduce themselves in outward physical action and gradually transform themselves into physical reality. Therefore, I will concentrate my thoughts for 30 minutes daily upon the task of thinking of the person I intend to become, thereby creating in my mind a clear mental picture of that person. Imagining you're already that person. As you imagine you're already that person, as he says here, it becomes a dominating thought in your mind. And it eventually reproduces itself in outward physical action. You begin to behave that way. You imagine you are that way, you begin to behave that way automatically. He says, number 3, I know through the principle of autosuggestion, any desire that I persistently hold in my mind will eventually seek expression through some practical means of attaining the object back to it. Therefore, I will devote 10 minutes daily to demanding of myself the development of self-confidence. And when he uses words that may sound force-based, they're not really force-based. Like, for example, demanding, it's more like accepting of myself, that I am that way. 4th, I have clearly written down a description of my definite chief aim in life, and I will never stop trying until I have developed sufficient self-confidence for its attainment. So essentially, the never stop trying is essentially persist in imagination that you already are that through autosuggestion. Allow that to be impressed upon the subconscious mind. As mentioned, what ends up happening, you are that person, is you've persistently held in mind that you are that, and it shall, by law, seek expression through some practical means, including outward physical action. I've worked with many entrepreneurs over the years. I've changed my life through entrepreneurship in many different ways, more accurately put, through thinking differently, and more accurately put, thinking from the premise of already being who I desire to be. And their behaviors changed. Watch the video I did with Ed, almost 2.5 hours long. We talked about it. Their behaviors changed as a result of them accepting that they are that way. We set up environments so that it nurtures their way of thinking. They know the way they desire to think. The question is, do we allow ourselves to think for ourselves? Or are we looking around to this world and saying, based on what this person said or that person said or what's on the news or whatever, we should think that way? You can think that way if you'd like, but you'll impress that on the subconscious mind. And do you want those experiences? Well, if they're helpful, if you enjoy those experiences, that's fine. And it's really up to you. Even if you don't enjoy the experience, you have all the power. You get to choose what you think feelingly upon. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what to think. You know what to think. All that's being proposed here is think for yourself the way you desire to think for yourself. Live the kind of life you don't need my permission, my approval, validation, or anybody's. Think for yourself. He says, I have clearly written down a description of my definite chief aim in life, and I will never stop trying. And by trying, it just means accept that you are that. It doesn't mean forcefully try to do things in this world. Those things are automatic expressions from what has been impressed, the beliefs that have been formed through autosuggestion of your subconscious mind. For example, in sales, in the earlier stages, I used to have a lot of resistance, stress, frustration, anxiety. I just kept accepting that I am this proficient salesperson who can have a wonderful conversation with someone, understand them, fall in love with them about their pains, needs, desires, frustrations are, and provide a wonderful solution that can benefit them. What's the resistance in that? Well, the resistance in that was fear, doubt, uncertainty, other kinds of belief identification that was just making it harder than it needs to be. It doesn't need to be hard at all. It can be fun. It can be flow-based. He says, I fully realize that no wealth or possession can long endure unless built upon truth and justice. Therefore, I will engage in no transaction which does not benefit all whom it affects. I will succeed by attracting to myself the forces I wish to use and the cooperation of other people. I will induce others to serve me because of my willingness to serve others. Giving and receiving is one. You accept you are that way. People benefit from your product or service. They appear that way. You do a nice conversation with them. You facilitate the client acquisition through conversation. You enjoy the process. He says, I will eliminate hatred, envy, jealousy, selfishness, and cynicism. And these are all unnecessary beliefs that do nothing but generate resistance on the journey to actualizing the success. He says, we do this by developing love for all humanity, because I know that a negative attitude towards others can never bring me success. leads to suffering. There's no one to change but self. Everyone appears in harmonious relationship to reflect what we're conscious of being, whether we consider that ideal or not. Therefore, you can't really deceive anyone. Have you ever experienced anything outside of your consciousness? You've only experienced things within your consciousness. Thus he says, I will cause others to believe. There's only one cause within, I am. To believe in me because I will believe in them. The golden rule. Do unto others as you wish done unto yourself. Experience thus, then, a flow-based journey to actualizing the vision. Business, entrepreneurship, career, sales, professional. Fun, easy, flow-based. Joyous. My product and service for fair compensation. Wonderful conversation. If they want to do the deal, great. If they don't want to do the deal, great. Why? Because I have optimization data. I can adjust my positioning, my product, my service. I can present it differently. I can also diversify and communicate with other prospects. Maybe they'll come back later on and do the deal with me, but now I'm focusing on these other deals. That's another thing. I keep my mind occupied in what I'm doing right now. Every place that I am, that's where I desire to be. Because some way, somehow, it's related to the outcome. And I show up and I enjoy what I'm doing. And then I move on to the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. And I have a fun, joyous, flow-based day. Because I'm not identified with beliefs that I used to be identified with before, such as hatred, cynicism. Those are unnecessary, creating unnecessary resistance. Does it actually benefit you? Well, if it does, then it does. But from my experience, it didn't benefit me on the journey to actualizing the vision. You can look at things accurately, yes. But this unnecessary, heavy kind of unnecessary overthinking in relation to what appears could be a result of beliefs. Could be a result of the 6 basic fears, which we'll get into later on. He says, I will sign my name to this formula, commit it to memory, and repeat it aloud once a day, with full faith that will gradually influence my thoughts and actions so that I will become a self-reliant and successful person. So we're seeing something here, a theme all throughout this book. It's autosuggestion. The theme is, accept that you are that which you already desire to be. Again, again, and again. And you change. Maybe the changes in the earlier stages are gradual. For some areas of my life, they were. Nothing wrong with that. Some of the changes in my life were rapid. Some areas of my life like that, nothing wrong with that. Rapid, gradual, it doesn't matter to me. I don't worry or concern myself, nor do I encourage others to worry or concern, because that becomes another worry or concern. And we're impressing that on the subconscious mind. We walk by faith, not by sight. Chapter 4 is on autosuggestion. He says, autosuggestion is a term which applies to all suggestions and all self-administered stimuli which reach one's mind through the 5 senses. Stated in another way, autosuggestion is self-suggestion. It is the agency of communication between that part of the mind where the conscious thought takes place, and that which serves as the seat of action for the subconscious mind. Through the dominating thoughts which one permits to remain in the conscious mind, whether these thoughts be negative or positive is immaterial. The principle of autosuggestion voluntarily reaches the subconscious mind and influences it with these thoughts. No thought, whether it be negative or positive, can enter the subconscious mind without the aid of the principle of autosuggestion, with the exception of thoughts picked up from the ether. This is interesting. Why would he say that? Well, all arise from the one source within. And so when you look around and you see invention, innovation, you see people doing things, they're saying things, all of that is from the same source that is within you. And so you can pick up ideas, hunches, plans, inspiration from within during moments of meditation, listening to your inner voice. The still small voice that speaks from the silence provides you insights, inspiration, answers to questions. As the mind gets purified from limiting restrictive beliefs, identification to them, we realize this, what I'm referring to. Everything arises from within, and it's within you. And so you can suggest to yourself what you desire to experience, which is also sourced from within. Desires come from infinite intelligence. You receive the desires from within, and infinite intelligence fulfill the desires from within. Autosuggestions are acknowledgement, like prayer, to purify the mind from false beliefs, acknowledgements of already having that which you desire. And thus even the plans, hunches, inspirations are received within. The autosuggestions are received within. The desires are received within. The ideas of how to bring forth your vision are received within. Certainly you can read books, watch videos, and learn things. All of that was sourced from within. It's helpful to do that. Yet we also want to think for ourselves, especially when it comes to matters of the heart, because I realized on my entrepreneurial journey that there were ways that I actualized my vision that was distinct to what others were doing. If I didn't think for myself, if my mind wasn't purified to this degree, and you and I know different, we all go through this journey of mind purification. If my mind was not purified to this degree, I would doubt and hesitate that which I already know. I would listen to the mental chatter, or I would look around to see what others are doing, which they're repeating the same things we're imagining anyways, or they have sourced from within, or perhaps looking around the same information. And so we can go within, find the answer. Autosuggestion is self-administered stimuli, as he says here, stimuli which reach one's mind through the 5 senses. So, in other words, any kind of 5 sensory information is subject to our conscious mind. As in, you can choose how you relate to the experiences. You can choose how you relate to the information. Even as I'm presenting this information right now, you're the one imagining as to what this information means to you, whether it be helpful or not. You're the one. It says, stated differently, all sense impressions which are perceived through the 5 senses are stopped by the conscious thinking mind and may be either passed onto the subconscious mind or rejected at will. The conscious faculty serves, therefore, as an outer guard to the approach of the subconscious. So, in other words, this 5 sensory experience is a result of what we once imagined. All is sourced from within. Now, we're experiencing the 5 sensory information. And we're discerning, do we want to continue to imagine reality to be this way or not? In a helpful way or not helpful way? You have that choice. If something appears and you wouldn't consider it to be ideal, we don't need to impress that on the subconscious mind. He says, recall what has been said about the subconscious mind, which resembling a fertile garden spot in which weeds will grow in abundance if the seeds of more desirable crops are not sown therein. Autosuggestion is the agency of control through which an individual may voluntarily feed their mind on thoughts of a creative nature or by neglect. People walk around maybe believing that they can't live the way they desire to live. That's their own beliefs, playing out as the theater to affirm that which they're thinking feelingly on, that which they're believing. And they may come across more information that validates that thinking, and they further accept that information as that's the way it is, by neglect. As he says, permitting thoughts of a destructive nature to find their way into the rich garden of the mind. You have everything within. Everything. All power is within. The garden of the mind, you simply plant autosuggestions in your subconscious mind. And then we allow, some way, somehow, them to externalize. We guard the subconscious mind from false impressions, so we don't put any false impressions on the subconscious mind. Why? Because you're the only suggester inside in relation to experiences. He says, when you begin to carry out the first of the 6 steps which instruct you to fix in your own mind the exact amount of money you desire, hold your thoughts on that amount of money by concentration or fixation of attention with your eyes closed until you can actually see the physical appearance of the money. Feel as though it's already yours, because it's yours. Feel it as real, like that's the way it is. Reality is imagination during that experience, when you're imagining it. That impresses the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind does not distinguish between what the conscious mind considers as 5 sensory experience or 6 sense. It simply accepts whatever suggestions you give to the subconscious mind. Here what's being proposed is to disentangle our minds from the evidence of the senses for a moment and focus our attention of already being that which you desire to be, suggesting to ourselves, like that's the way it is. He says, do this at least once each day. As you go through these exercises, follow the instructions given in the chapter of faith and see yourself actually in possession of that money. And that's the key, because some way, somehow, I didn't know that these were going to be my ways that the money was going to be actualized. I don't concern myself with those details. We don't need to concern ourselves with those details. Infinite intelligence. In the Bible, it says, your ways are not my ways. Since the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways. Or my ways are past finding out, as in the ways of infinite intelligence. Some way, somehow, you may know some of the things. Plans, hunches, inspiration, information is received within. Certainly, I mentioned that. Yet, some way, somehow, it happens. We have faith. We allow it to happen. We don't get involved with overthinking. We simply take one step at a time, as he says here. Here's the most significant fact. The subconscious mind takes any orders given in a spirit of absolute faith and acts upon these orders. Although the orders often have to be presented over and over again through repetition before they are interpreted by the subconscious mind, which is fine. So you repeat it a number of times before it's accepted, till you feel that that's the way it is. Or you can say once to yourself, like that's the way it is. And you know what? I found that over the years by releasing identification to beliefs that were not supportive of being who I truly desire to be, made it easier for me to suggest to myself one thing and just say, that's the way it is. Like I said, I write my definite chief aim on the card now. I read it once. I maybe pick up the card now and then. I set it and forget it. In some way, somehow, it's actualized. But in the earlier stages, I would read it to myself over and over again. Nothing wrong with that. Totally fine. We do what works. He says, hand over the thoughts suggested in the preceding paragraph to your imagination and see what your imagination can or will do to create physical plans for the accumulation of money through transmutation of your desire. So again, desire means you already have. Desire, you have a desire, it means you already have it. You experience desire to acknowledge that which you already have. That's the transmutation. This can be done with your vision and all aspects on the journey to actualizing your vision. Anytime a desire arises, thank you, I already have. And proceed. He says, do not wait for a definite plan through which you intend to exchange services or merchandise in return for the money you are visualizing. But begin at once to see yourself in possession of that money, demanding and expecting, meanwhile, that your subconscious mind will hand over the plan or plans you need. Be on the alert for these plans, and when they appear, put them into action immediately. The reality is you'll put them into action immediately because they'll be so distinct. You'll get that intuition right away. You'll put it into plan. If one doesn't put it into plan, then what are they identified with? Are they looking for evidence or approval, validation, confirmation in this world before they put their plans into action? If they do that, that's identification. That's not listening to yourself and trusting yourself. Here we are encouraging, listening to, as Steve Jobs said, your heart and intuition. Everything else is secondary. He says, when the plans appear, they will probably flash into your mind through the sixth sense in the form of an inspiration. This inspiration may be considered a direct telegram or message from infinite intelligence. I like how Florence Scovel Shinn said it one time. Prayer is you telephoning to God, and intuition is God telephoning to you. He says, treat it with respect and act upon it as soon as you receive it, because it's all part of the journey, the divine theater towards actualizing your vision. You play an active role in it. So are you resisting by forcefully trying to wait and do things that is not in alignment with intuition? He says, remember, as you carry out these instructions, that you are applying the principle of autosuggestion for the purpose of giving orders to your subconscious mind. Remember also that your subconscious mind will act only upon instructions which are handed over to it with feeling. And by feeling, it means, I already have it. Faith, the assurance of things hoped for. Loyalty to the unseen reality. So, to emphasize this, he says, these instructions may at first seem abstract. Do not let this disturb you. Follow the instructions, no matter how abstract or impractical they may at first appear to be. The time will soon come, if you do as you have been instructed, in spirit as well as act, when a whole new universe of power will unfold to you. Or I could say, you'll realize that the universe of power is within you. Skepticism, he says, in connection with all new ideas is characteristic of all human beings. But if you follow the instructions outlined, your skepticism will soon be replaced by belief. And this, in turn, will soon become crystallized into absolute faith. Then you will have arrived at the point where you may truly say, I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Many philosophers have made this statement, that we are the master of our own earthly destiny. But most of them have failed to say why we are the master. The reason that we may be the master of our own earthly status, and especially our financial status, is thoroughly explained in this chapter. One may become the master of ourselves, of our environment, because we have the power to influence our own subconscious mind, and through it, gain the cooperation of infinite intelligence. This is very important. Because we have the power to influence our own subconscious mind by thinking for ourselves. Simple as that, thinking for yourself. From the premise of already having, being what you desire to be. And then you gain the cooperation of infinite intelligence to some way, somehow externalize that for you. It says you are now reading the chapter which represents the keystone to the arc of this philosophy. The instructions contained in this chapter must be understood and applied with persistence if you succeed in transmuting desire into money. The actual performing of transmuting desire into money involves the use of autosuggestion as an agency by which one may reach and influence the subconscious mind. Any kind of emotions arise, we have a relationship with the subconscious mind and transmute that emotion, whatever it may be, towards the service to others, as mentioned, the sales example, or whatever else in relation on the journey to actualizing your vision. And even goes on to say the other principles are simply tools with which to apply autosuggestion. That's very important. He says the other principles are simply tools with which to apply autosuggestion. Pray as though you already have. Keep this thought in mind, and you will at all times be conscious of the important part the principle of autosuggestion is to play in your efforts to accumulate money through the methods described in this book. Carry out these instructions as though you were a small child. Inject into your efforts something of the faith of a child. The author has been most careful to see that no impractical instructions were included because of his sincere desire to be helpful. After you have read the entire book, come back to this chapter and follow in spirit and in action this instruction. Read the entire chapter aloud once every night until you become thoroughly convinced that the principle of autosuggestion is sound, that it will accomplish for you all that has been claimed for it. As you read, underscore with a pencil every sentence which impresses you favorably. Follow the foregoing instruction to the letter, and it will open the way for a complete understanding and mastery of the principles of success. Specialized knowledge. He says knowledge will not attract money unless it is organized and intelligently directed through practical plans of action to the definite end of accumulation of money. So, if you look around the internet, for example, you'll see a lot of knowledge. You can learn how to do anything. And there are many ways of learning how to do that same thing. You want to learn how to snowboard, you want to learn how to build a business. Many different teachers, so much different information available for you. Yet, if we don't apply this knowledge, or more specifically, the knowledge that is related to your vision, which you discern from within, from the infinite pool of knowledge that's available now, which you could say was always there because even if it didn't appear on the internet, some way, somehow you'd access it because that's how it works. The infinite intelligence within your subconscious mind, some way, somehow, takes what you imagine and externalizes it for you, be it if it were to include plans or something like that, information related to your vision. Knowledge, if it is organized and intelligently directed, so when you have an impression on your subconscious mind of that which you acknowledge you already are, which is the autosuggestion. I earn X amount. I have a lavish, steady, dependable income consistent with integrity and mutual benefit, which earns me, whatever, $300,000 a year. As that is impressed on the subconscious mind, your attention automatically is oriented towards the information that is related to that vision. For example, one of the things that I used to teach when I used to teach speed reading was that if you know clearly what you are looking to get out of the information, then when you read a book, that information will stand out. And so thus you could read a book faster because your eyes automatically go in the direction of what is related to the vision. Your intuition guides that. It is guiding you based on the impression that has been made on the subconscious mind. Because you impressed the subconscious mind with an autosuggestion of already having that. So now everything appears in harmony and in contribution to that vision, to actualize it. If it doesn't appear that way, that's belief identification. Or if resistance is experienced on the journey to actualizing that vision, that's belief identification. Bring awareness to that belief within and release identification to it by asking yourself some questions. What is this emotion revealing? Is it revealing fear of criticism, that if you say something that others are going to criticize you? Does it really matter? It doesn't, because at the end of the day, you're the one assigning meaning in relation to what appears. So it could mean that it propels you forward, or it could mean that it holds you back. You're the only one that could generate an experience of propelling yourself forward or holding yourself back. And so what's being proposed here is to choose to impress upon the subconscious mind any meaning in relation to what appears that propels you forward. So information appears, specialized knowledge appears from the infinite knowledge that already exists. Also, plans of applying this knowledge is received within towards a definite end. Ideas started to show up in my mind. When I built my IT business, I would listen to a lot of podcasts, yes. Marketing podcasts, sales podcasts, a lot of different podcasts. Read a lot of books. Yet I didn't apply everything. You don't need to apply everything. I applied what I was resonant with, what my intuition told me to apply. I just simply applied that, and it produced success. How did I build my IT business? You could say in a very practical way. Through referrals. But the referrals were done in my style of doing referrals, which I didn't see anyone do it that style. There are infinity ways of doing referrals. There are infinity ways of running ads. There are certain ad platforms, yes. You can run it on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and there are many more. But there are different nuances in relation to it. And I've studied direct response marketing, consultative selling, and copywriting for many years. And I've been exposed to many that are masterful at it. And they all have their distinct ways. And perhaps you use one person's way or a combination, one person's way with another person's way, combine it. Yet, from that autosuggestion of already having it, the specialized knowledge appears, including what he says here. Those that appear as a mastermind, we'll talk about that. He says, before you can be sure of your ability to transmute desire into its monetary equivalent, you will require specialized knowledge of the service, merchandise, or profession which you intend to offer in return for fortune. It appears. The information appears. And you don't get overwhelmed by the information that appears unless you believe in the possibility of being overwhelmed. You realize that this is all mental. The beliefs that are stored in the subconscious mind play out as the experiences. If we're experiencing life in an undesirable way on the journey to actualizing the vision, we can bring awareness to these beliefs and release identification with autosuggestion. For example, if one says that they're overwhelmed by information, they could say, more so each day in every way, I find myself easily processing information in a way that's complementary and in harmony with my vision. Information shows up at the right time, ideally in the most unexpected way, from the most unexpected sources. And as the information presents itself, I'm able to sift and sort automatically and pinpoint the exact information that is relevant right now in relation to my vision and apply it. He says, perhaps you may need much more specialized knowledge than you have the ability or the inclination to acquire. And if this should be true, you may bridge your weakness through the aid of your mastermind group. So again, seeming weakness. We don't actually have a weakness. We can have a belief that we're identified with that suggests that we're weak. What he's saying here is that you don't have to do it all yourself. All things arise from the same source in harmony and in contribution with each other, including those that appear that are in harmony with your vision. I worked with many businesses when I built my IT business consulting practice in a mutually harmonious way. For example, I remember one of my contractors would do cabling services, but he would also refer business to me, IT business. I would refer business to him. He would provide that service for my clients because I didn't do the cabling service, the fiber optics and so forth. He provided that service. I gave him a nice referral fee. He would give me a referral fee at times. Wonderful deals. We would refer business to each other. He would share valuable insights with me because he was a very successful entrepreneur. And he had a wonderful team, and he would talk about team building, relationships, etc. There were those that were specialized in certain technologies that I would hire as contractors once in a while to fulfill on certain services. They would also refer business to me. So not only did I refer business to them, they would refer business to me. Because I generated a mastermind. He says, the missing link in all systems of education known to civilization today may be found in the failure of educational institutions to teach their students how to organize and use knowledge after they acquire it. Now, it's been a while since I've been in school, so I'm not sure if schools are doing it now. Yet the information is available on the internet on how to organize information. How do you organize and use information after you acquire it? By having a goal and a vision. See, when you have a goal and a vision, and it's impressed upon the subconscious mind of already having it, all the knowledge and experience and everything that you have accumulated some way, somehow gets, infinite intelligence does all that, figures it out for you, takes that and channels it through you to actualize your vision. I worked in corporate IT, and I did office support. I also did warehouse management support. Prior to that, I told you I worked at warehouses. I learned about logistics there because I was fascinated by it. That also led into having a role to play in me getting hired in the logistics section of that IT department, where I was involved with managing the wireless networks, warehouse management systems, and corporate. When I got into my IT business, I built point of sale systems also as part of my IT business. Part of it was what we call ERP solutions. And I started to get into logistics, and some of the deals were logistics based. One thing led to the next. All this knowledge, all this expertise that I'd acquired, all the books that I read, all the practical experience, the manuals, etc., played a role in my IT business. Then my IT business, I learned how to sell to a higher degree, marketing, operations, leadership, finance, innovation, years of business building experience. Then I translated that into a service to others in consulting. All that knowledge, which I had acquired, was channeled towards a service to others by having a definite chief aim and impressing that on the subconscious mind of already having, and then allowing that information to be some way, somehow work to a service to others. And we created so many products and services that were a hybrid. They were a mix of all these things that I learned, and including what others had learned. Plus, when, let's say, we needed some information, it was there. I trusted that some way, somehow, that information would be given to me in a summary, or I'd pick up the book and that information would be right then and there. Because the infinite intelligence within your subconscious mind orients you, we simply allow it to happen, towards the actualization of your vision. He says, for example, many people make the mistake of assuming that because Henry Ford had but little schooling, he was not a man of education. Those who make this mistake do not know Henry Ford, nor do they understand the real meaning of the word educate. The word is derived from the Latin word educo, which means to educe, to draw out, to develop from within. An educated person is not necessarily one who has an abundance of general or specialized knowledge. An educated person, in the context of our conversation today of acquiring riches, is one who has so developed the faculties of their mind that they may acquire anything they want, or its equivalent, without violating the rights of others. Everything happens automatically, ideally, in a spirit of harmony with all, from that impression on the subconscious mind through autosuggestion. Pray as though you already have it. Those are the instructions. We take the autosuggestion, we accept that's the way it is, repeat it to ourselves a number of times, play it on loop, whatever way of autosuggestion. Impress that on the subconscious mind. Infinite intelligence takes that impression, some way, somehow, externalizes for you. You may play an active role in it.
You're compelled to do things or not do things. You allow it to happen. If there's any force or frustration, fear in relation to it, which we'll talk about in a moment, in the 6 Basic Fears chapter, bring awareness to those beliefs. That's generating that resistance. Release identification to those beliefs. Chapter 6 is on imagination. Essentially, we want to allow imagination to take care of everything. He says, the imagination is literally the workshop wherein are fashioned all plans created by us. The impulse of desire is given shape, form, and action through the aid of the imaginative faculty of the mind. He says there are 2 forms of imagination. Number 1, synthetic imagination. Through this faculty, one may arrange old concepts, ideas, or plans into new combinations. It works with the material of experience, education, and observation with which it is fed, as mentioned. Infinite intelligence may take some of the things that you've known, the knowledge you've acquired, education, etc., and combine it in creative ways to actualize your vision. And we can also allow for what he refers to as creative imagination. Going beyond that. So what he means is, through the faculty of creative imagination, the finite mind of us has direct communication with infinite intelligence. It is the faculty through which hunches and inspirations are received. It is by this faculty that all basic or new ideas are handed over to us. New invention, breakthrough technology, artistic expression that has never been done before, distinct ways of doing things from creative imagination. We allow it to happen by trusting that we're one with the source. If one does not believe that the source of it all is within them, now, even though it says it in the Bible over and over again, then they're not allowing themselves to experience the creative imagination. They're simply going to apply synthetic imagination. You can get a lot of success from synthetic imagination. As mentioned, it could be done in combination, creative imagination and synthetic imagination. What is being proposed here is acknowledging that all power is within. There's only one cause, I am. We simply accept the suggestion of being the way that we desire to be through autosuggestion. Like that's the way it is. Our vision is fact. Now, all things already exist in imagination. It says in the Bible, creation is complete. We simply accept that's the way it is, the way we imagine our vision. I earn X amount of dollars. My business success is this. That's it. We accept it. If there's any hesitation, fears, doubts, indecision, repetition of the same autosuggestion again and again dissolves all of that. And if you find it challenging, no shame and condemnation. Bring awareness to the beliefs that's generating that resistance and release identification to it. It could be something like if someone says, I earn X amount of dollars, let's say $100,000 a month, they might be saying to themselves, but nobody in my community does that, or nobody in my family has done that before. What does that have to do with it? It only has something to do with it if we believe it does. In other words, beliefs play out as theater. So, no shame and condemnation of ourselves. There's nothing wrong with you, as in who you truly are is prosperity, fulfillment, bliss, happiness, love. We could say we desire things to acknowledge we already have it, and then from acknowledging we already having it, we experience it, we allow it to happen. So we release identification to those beliefs. We say, have a conversation with ourselves. I've been able to release identification to some of the most challenging beliefs with myself and working with others through conversation. Power of conversation. Power of thinking accurately releases identification to the beliefs that generate that resistance, provided that someone is proficient at doing it. Again, you get better at it with practice. If you want that specialized knowledge, you'll acquire it. Just imagine yourself being a communicator like that. To say, I imagine myself right now as a communicator that's highly effective, that can transform others. Others appear to me with pains, desires, frustrations, etc. And I fulfill them. They are fulfilled through my products and services. Easily, effortlessly. Accept it, even if it's not believable right now. We can begin to accept that suggestion. And what does that do? That allows us to access creative imagination, because even if we don't know the ways of how it's going to happen, all things already exist in imagination. in creative imagination. He says, it is through this faculty that thought vibrations from the minds of others are received. It is through this faculty one individual may tune in or communicate with the subconscious minds of others. So you get access to the information. You start to attract people to you. They show up some way, somehow, in fascinating, interesting ways. And in relation to Think and Grow Rich, I was in Playa del Carmen, Mexico last year, and I was in the water, and I have these conversations with what I refer to as the holy guardian angel. I've been doing this since I was a child. Always guided me. And I picked up a seashell while I was in the water to commemorate this relationship that I have, and I have it still with me. And I remember saying to my holy guardian angel, you always take care of everything for me. You always bring me the deals, the opportunities, you take care of everything. Holy guardian angel says, yes, everything. And we have more deals coming up. 3 or 4 weeks later, I received a message from the Napoleon Hill Institute, the CEO of the Napoleon Hill Institute. She asked if I would like to jump on a call. They were interested in working together in some shape or form. So we jumped on a call, and she said, we're doing an event. It's in Palmaya House of Aya, which just happens to be 30 minutes away from the place I picked up the seashell when I was in Mexico. And we would like you to speak at this event. I said, wonderful, I'll do it. And so the topic we agreed upon was the holy guardian angel. Why? Because Napoleon Hill, he actually wrote about the holy guardian angel. When Outwitting the Devil was released, there was something called the secret chapter that was included. The secret chapter talks about Napoleon Hill's relationship with this holy guardian angel. It's very interesting. He says the creative imagination works automatically in the manner described in subsequent pages. This faculty functions only when the conscious mind is vibrating at an exceedingly rapid rate, as for example, when the conscious mind is stimulated through the emotion of a strong desire. So desires may be transmuted into higher levels of thought. Very practically speaking, a person has a desire to achieve whatever prosperity. They accept they already have it. They all of a sudden receive within higher thoughts, higher ideas. These ideas are, you could say, revolutionary if you're in the world of business. They're technological ideas. They're ideas for new services that perhaps have never been done before. They receive it from within. He says the creative faculty becomes more alert, more receptive to vibrations from the sources mentioned in proportion to its development through use. So, how do we develop creative imagination? Well, actually, I recommend doing both. Synthetic imagination and creative imagination. Be in an inspired state. Simply put, what are all the areas in your life where you experience flow and creativity, where you feel the creative imagination flow? Perhaps engaging in conversations with others through a mastermind, where we talk about creative ideas rather than destructive ideas. Talk about creative ways of solving challenges, rather than identifying with all the ways or the different ways that a business can fail. I'm speaking of identifying with. Certainly you can bring awareness to possibilities of where a business might not work out without identifying with those beliefs. Yet, I would recommend gearing those conversations from whatever, let's say, possible negative outcome over to what can be done about it. How? We simply suggest in that moment. The answer will show up. Just remain in your flow. The answers show up. For this, I recommend my Flow-Based Life series. I'll link in the description to it. And it doesn't require hard work. As a matter of fact, this is the quote that I mentioned earlier. He said, if you are one of those who believe that hard work and honesty alone will bring riches, perish the thought. It is not true. Riches, when they come in huge quantities, are never the result of hard work. See, riches, or anything, experience in life, is the result of what has been imagined, of the one cause within. That's what he's referring to. And we don't need to identify with force-based beliefs in relation to. I used to experience, let's say, very hard work on the journey to actualizing my money prior to Think and Grow Rich. But then it got easier. Someone says, well, Joseph, you do a lot of things. You travel a lot. You make all these videos, consulting. Your schedule is back to back. Certainly you're working hard. I don't consider that hard work. I'm enjoying doing it. I get to do it. There were times where I reduced what I was doing to maybe working a few hours a week, and it was producing a wonderful income. I love what I do, so I'm choosing to do these things because I enjoy the service to others. I have a burning desire to get this out there and enjoy the different experiences that I have, so I want to be involved with more experiences. He says, riches come, if they come at all, in response to definite demands based upon the application of definite principles and not by chance or luck. We create our own what appears as luck or chance. By accepting, we already are that which we desire to be. We already have what we desire. That's autosuggestion. That's prayer. We allow imagination to take care of it. How? By remaining in your flow, being in a creative state. I make flow a priority. I rearrange my whole life to make flow a priority. If I'm going to live life, I might as well live life the way I desire to live life. You're the only one who can consciously suggest to yourself what to do and what not to do, how to live and how not to live. So go by the desires of the heart. As Steve Jobs said, follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you want to become. Everything else is secondary. Creative ideas show up. In sales, creative ways of doing sales, marketing campaigns, it shows up. I've shared many of them throughout the channel. We talked about it extensively in the conversation we did with Ed and Ruben. I'll link in the description to those videos. If you're a student of my 5 programs, you'll see that I talk about all my experiences and the ways that may be distinct from how others are doing it, but this has been my experience. Those 5 programs were built on the foundation of my experience. Because imagination, there are infinity ways in imagination, many that have not been discovered yet. How many ways? Infinity ways. Chapter 7 is organized planning. He says, you have learned that everything we create or acquire begins in the form of desire. So this is key to emphasize this. Everything begins with a desire or burning desire. And what we do with that desire is we accept that we already have that desire. We have it. Through autosuggestion, what does it imply? What would the feeling be like if it was true? Autosuggestion, I have that. I have it. He says that desire is taken on the first lap of its journey from the abstract to the concrete into the workshop of the imagination. You imagine what implies, what desire means. I have it. That's how you take it into the workshop of imagination. And from there, plans, as he says here, where plans for its transition are created and organized. You plant the seed in the subconscious mind. And then ideas, hunches, plans, inspirations appear on your mind, just like that. You simply apply those ones. That leads to the next step, to the next step, to the next step. I recommend watching, actually, the Steve Jobs commencement speech. He talks about how Apple was built and how one thing led to another. Same with my results, same with everyone's results that I've spoken with. But their ways were so distinct, all the little nuances. They received it within. He says in chapter 2, you are instructed to take 6 definite practical steps as your first move in translating the desire for money into its monetary equivalent. One of these steps is the formation of a definite practical plan or plans through which the transformation may be made. Essentially, I have this amount of dollars. I have a wonderful business in which we provide this service. Clients are happy. Everyone loves what we do. I get to enjoy each day, each moment, each experience of actualizing this business success. Something like that. That leaves an impression upon the subconscious mind. And that shall be your experience. He says, you will now be instructed how to build plans which will be practical. Let's explore. He says, number 1, ally yourself with a group of as many people as you may need for the creation and carrying out of your plan or plans for the accumulation of money, making use of the mastermind principle described in a later chapter, which we'll talk about this in a moment. Number 2, before forming your mastermind alliance, Decide what advantages and benefits you may offer the individual members of your group in return for their cooperation. No one will work indefinitely without some form of compensation. And that's a wonderful thing about building teams or masterminds. What I like to do whenever I meet people is I want to know about what they desire. I want to know what they desire to experience in their life. And my goal is to help them actualize it in whatever way. Play a role in that, an active role. Because I'm interested in their goals, their visions, their definite chief aims, and actualizing that. And others reflect our state. They become interested in what I'm doing. They reciprocate it. That's the mastermind. He says, number 3, arrange to meet with the members of your mastermind group at least twice a week, and more often if possible, until you have jointly perfected the necessary plan or plans for the accumulation of money. Number 4, maintain perfect harmony between yourself and every member of your mastermind group. And the mastermind principle cannot obtain where perfect harmony does not prevail, because people reflect our state. The golden rule, do unto others as you wish done unto yourself. When you show up in a mastermind, you genuinely are interested in helping others. You're interested in their results, their visions, their goals, their definite chief aims. It appears through creative imagination, ideas, hunches, plans, inspirations, flash upon the mind's eye. We allow it to happen, remain in our flow, and they reciprocate it, they reflect it. In mutual harmony and contribution, you build the business together, or whatever it is. For example, I remember a mastermind that I had was, I went to actually an online mastermind group on Facebook in Toronto, and I connected with the founder of that group. We met up for a coffee, and we decided to mastermind in person. And we said, you can refer businesses to me, I will refer businesses to you. He was building Joomla websites, and I was providing IT services. A little while after, he refers me to a company, a steel company, to perform the IT services for them. They gave me so much work that I had to hire my first contractor, and they loved the work so much that they gave me ongoing business. I gave them a percentage of the first sale or something like that because we worked out a deal. And then the accountant there was so happy with the service that we were providing this firm that she said, look, I have an office as well. Would you be interested in providing IT services for us? I said, yes. And we provided IT services for her and her team. And then she started referring me to so much business to, at one point I had to say, can you please slow down? We didn't have the infrastructure to grow at that pace. And I was still learning at that time. But the bottom line is that you learn, you grow, you attract everything in proportion to your degree of remaining faithful to your vision, and you allow these things to happen. He has a section called Planning the Sale of Services. It says, the information here conveyed will be of practical help to any person having any form of personal services to market, but it will be of priceless benefit to those who aspire to in leadership in their chosen occupations. Intelligent planning is essential for success in any undertaking designed to accumulate riches. Here will be found detailed instructions to those who must begin the accumulation of riches by selling personal services. It should be encouraging to know that practically all the great fortunes begin in the form of compensation for personal services or from the sales of ideas. Ideas arise. I'm not sure what that idea will be for you. Perhaps you already have your idea. The question is, are you seeing that idea into fruition each day? And so very practical here. What I do is when I receive the idea, I just see it into completion. I just follow the steps outlined to see that idea into completion. If it was a new business idea, I take that business idea and I say, okay, what are the first steps? I got to build a website. Then after I build a website, I got to put the product on the website for sale. I got to set up the payment processing. And then I'm going to start running ads to it. And then I'm going to optimize the ads. And then after I optimize the ads, I may get a few sales. And then I may get a business deal. Maybe someone might say, you know what? And this has happened actually with some of my clients, and including some of the things that I worked on. All of a sudden we get this lead source that says, hey, listen, you're selling the product on this website. We actually have a whole list of buyers that are interested in that product. Would you be interested in us bringing awareness to your product in which we get a percentage of it? And then that percentage deal ends up being better as far as return on investment goes than the ad spend. And so then the business grows like that. I've actually met some that actually built their businesses that way. They started off by doing some social media or some ads, And then all of a sudden they got this contract with this other company, and that ended up being the source for deals and didn't have to do social media or ads anymore. And they just ended up getting clients from that other deal. See, he has something called the QQS formula. So as I go about my initiatives on the way to actualizing my business success, and this could be if you're a sales professional, career professional, or whatever, QQS, quality, quantity, and spirit of service. Number one, quality of service, he says, shall be construed to mean the performance of every detail in connection with your position in the most efficient manner possible, with the object of greater efficiency always in mind. Quality of service. Many ways of going about doing this. I keep this in my mind. And one doesn't have to be perfect at it right away. They continue to optimize their quality of service more so each day. Number two, quantity of service shall be understood to mean the habit of rendering all the service of which you are capable at all times, with the purpose of increasing the amount of service rendered as greater skill is developed through practice and experience. Emphasis is again placed on the word habit. So essentially spreading it out to more markets, going into new verticals, finding ways that you can offer additional products and services to your existing clients, reactivating some of your own clients from the past, let's say where you're offering service A, but now they can benefit from service B. Finding ways of, let's say you advertise on one platform, moving into another platform. Let's say you focus on one social media channel and it's optimized. You now want to add another one. Maybe it requires building a team. So thus then we have the mastermind principle that comes in. You end up acquiring those that have specialized knowledge to contribute to your vision. And number three, spirit of service shall be construed to mean the habit of agreeable, harmonious conduct which will induce cooperation from associates and fellow employees. So if there's a spirit of service, if everyone is genuinely interested in the success of the business or the initiative, and as the leader we facilitate that, everyone is happy within the organization. One of the ways that I do this is, as mentioned earlier, I'm interested in their goals, their visions, their desires, and I come up with creative ways to help them actualize those goals, visions, and desires. In exchange, they help me with mine. In exchange, they help each other. And then what we have is a harmonious spirit of harmony within the organization. So again, quality of service, quantity of service, and spirit of service. Chapter 8 is on decision. He says, accurate analysis of over 25,000 people who had experienced failure disclosed the fact that lack of decision was near the head of the list of the 30 major causes of failure. It is no mere statement of a theory, it is a fact. So when we say causes of failure, it's how we relate to an experience that one may call failure. It's a belief. And there's only one cause, and it is within. See, in business, if someone rolls out a marketing campaign, let's say they put out some social media content, and it doesn't perform in a way that they ideally would have liked it to be, they have a few choices. Number one is they can say, well, what can we optimize from this? The goal is to some way, somehow, turn this into a successful marketing campaign. Or they could say, it doesn't work. The truth is, how do they know that it doesn't work? What are they basing it on? Maybe just a few variables. Have others also been able to make it work? And even if others have not been able to make it work, or even if others have made it work, there are infinity ways that have not been discovered yet. It was wonderful for me to get into consulting and be around some of the best minds when it comes to marketing in 2013 onwards, all the way up till 2019, and I'm still surrounded by them. They would find ways of optimizing campaigns in creative little nuances that I've never seen anyone do before. And what they all carried was this foundation of it's possible. They believed that all things were possible. And because they were open to possibilities, they found a way. So it's how a person relates to the word failure that determines the kind of experiences they have. He says, procrastination is the opposite of decision. I would consider myself back in the days, I remember considering myself as one who procrastinates. And sure enough, people would say, Joseph, you're always procrastinating and stuff like that, because people reflect our state. Upon taking full responsibility, I said, well, that's the way that I was seeing myself before. That's fine. No shame and condemnation. How do I see myself now? One who is committed to their vision. That means my day right now is pretty much back to back. One thing to the next thing to the next thing from a state of flow. I get to do all these things. Those who reach decisions promptly and definitely know what they want and generally get it. The leaders in every walk of life decide quickly and firmly. That is the major reason why they're leaders. The world has a habit of making room for those whose words and actions show that they know where they are going. Indecision is a habit which usually begins in youth. And why? Because it's identification to a belief. A person may, let's say, not decide on something. And then they shame and condemn themselves. I didn't decide on that. They say they're the kind of person that doesn't decide. And then they form this identity. When they can change that in the moment. They can say, now I am a certain way. A person that knows where they're going. And they may not even know what that looks like, but they accept that suggestion right then and there. Then they start making decisions. And here's the thing about decisions. If I have not made a decision on something, I accept it. I say, you know what? I have not made a decision on this next thing. Yet, when the moment arises to make a decision on it, I'll make a decision on it. For example, let's say you're looking for a property. You have not made a decision yet as to what property you want to acquire. It doesn't feel right to make the decision right now. Totally fine. Nothing wrong with you. I wouldn't consider that indecision. I would consider that a decision because you made a decision about not making a decision right now. And why you're not doing that is because you know some way, somehow you're going to get to that decision point. Eventually you'll get to that decision point. And it's not a form of procrastination. You're going to get to it at the accurate point. And so what happens then is maybe a new property shows up or you start to see some different uses of one property versus you didn't see it before. And then you say, okay, I'm going to take property A now. I've decided. You see how all of that is done from a place of flow by not accepting that procrastination is the way of being. Decision is the natural way of being. And why I say that is because when one accepts that their vision is the reality, infinite intelligence takes care of it. Hunches, inspirations are received with it. You automatically make decisions. When you're tuned in, when you're connected with, which we're always already connected with, it's do we believe that we're connected with? The source of it all. And so ideas show up in mind. I make this decision. I make that decision. If I'm not making a decision right now, that's fine. It's not the time to make the decision. I made a decision that it's not the time to make the decision. And then a couple of days later, I make a decision on it. And so that allowed me to make peace with it. Again, going back to my story, I was once someone who was considered, let's say, indecisive or procrastinator. That changed. Why did it change? Because I changed how I see myself. I started to think differently. I started to see myself as the person that reaches decisions promptly and definitely. And when a decision is to be made, it's to be made. And if a decision right now is not to be made, that's a decision. I'm not making that decision right now. Yet, when the decision does arise and I make the decision, upon connecting the dots looking backwards, I saw it was the accurate time to make the decision because we follow intuition. And so he says here, indecision is a habit which usually begins in youth. Again, we identify with these beliefs that result in a person appearing a certain way. They identify with the belief, perhaps, that they don't acknowledge that they are one with the infinite intelligence that's already there within them, that provides everything to contribute to actualizing their vision, some way, somehow. And others even show up to contribute. They may have a belief of disconnect from the source. Or maybe they identified with the belief in results to, let's say, they didn't do something that was considered decisive, and someone said, you're not a decisive person. And they identified with it. Without questioning it, they just identified with it. Or maybe they said it to themselves. He says this habit takes on permanency as the youth goes through graded school, high school, and even through college, without definiteness of purpose. So this is a wonderful thing. A moment a person commits to a vision and says, that's what I'm actualizing, they actually become more decisive. I noticed this. Prior to having definite chief aims, prior to being exposed to Think and Grow Rich in 2004, I was more on that side of a procrastinator or indecisive. I was more like that. Then upon applying this information, I became decisive. Because you know within, via intuition, what is in harmony with your vision and what is not. You can filter it. Discernment. He says the major weaknesses of all education systems, and again, I don't know if this is the case now, but this is what he was saying, maybe it's changed now, is that they neither teach or encourage the habit of definite decision. You know, why would it be challenging to help someone develop the habit of definite decision? Because what are we deciding from? When you have a vision of what you're looking to actualize, a desire that you've committed to, then you know clearly, as I mentioned earlier, when I used to teach speed reading workshops, one of the things we used to do to accelerate reading was to say, what is it that you would like to get out of this book? Is it related to passing an exam? Is it related to business success, career success, whatever it is? And let's get precise on it. Let's get really clear as to what that is. And they would say, I want to increase my sales X amount of dollars. They would actually find that they would read the book faster. Why? Because the infinite intelligence within their subconscious mind is taking that impression of the subconscious mind, or what they placed consciously on the subconscious mind, and it's orienting their attention as to the information that's relevant. All of a sudden, they're taking notes on the key areas. And maybe most of the book is not helpful for them. Maybe 20% of the book is helpful for them. For example, as I'm going through this book, we can cover pretty much everything that he mentions in the book. Yet my attention always seems to go on what is related to my current vision every time I read the book. So in a way, it feels like I'm reading a different book. So if someone says, what do you want to get out of this book? I'll say, you know what? In relation to my vision, whatever is related to this book will arise. And so I adjust accordingly. And the same is to be said about whatever else on the journey to actualizing the vision. As he says here, when one has definiteness of purpose, they know where they're going, you could say. They realize that they're already that in imagination. So they're appearing to go on a journey to actualizing that. They have definiteness of purpose. And they're decisive. And again, that nuanced point that I mentioned about deciding, and then if you haven't reached a decision, when you say, okay, it's not the time to make the decision on it right now, let me reflect upon it for a while. Or when the decision arises, then so be it. I do this sometimes when I travel. I say, you know what? I'm going to go somewhere. I don't know where it is right now, but I feel like I'm going to travel next month. Then all of a sudden, there arises an idea, just like that. I booked the flight. I'll give you an example of this. I was snowboarding up north a few years ago, and then I didn't book a place after. So I was staying out of Airbnbs because I wanted to try what that was like for a while when everything was closed. And so I stayed up north, and then the term had ended at that property, driving back. And then I said, you know what? I feel like going to Las Vegas, just like that. Just booked the flight right then and there. I didn't decide where I was going to go stay next. People were asking me, where are you going to go next? I'm like, I don't know. But the answer will arise. That's the decision. The answer will arise at the appropriate time. The answer rose on the way back to Toronto while I was driving. Booked the flight, booked everything. Within a couple of hours, I was at the airport. And I didn't even book the place to stay. I booked the place to stay when I landed at the airport. Wonderful place to stay. So spontaneous decisions, there's nothing wrong with that. When a person has a definite chief aim, a definiteness of purpose, what happens is those decisions automatically arise. And thus, to be decisive, have a definiteness of purpose. Chapter 9, persistence. He says, persistence is an essential factor in the procedure of transmuting desire into its monetary equivalent. The basis of persistence is the power of will. So, over the years, I realized willpower to a deeper degree than what I had learned before. And what I mean by that is, I used to think that willpower means I have to force myself to do something. And while that was my experience in the earlier stages, I questioned why it was experienced as force. In other words, to direct my mind onto something, why is it that I am forcefully directing my mind? And then I realized it was belief. In other words, if a person is about to do a sales call and they force themselves to do the sales call, one could say that they're applying willpower. And if they force themselves again and again and again, that could lead to exhaustion. Maybe they could be burned out after the end of the day when they make these calls, and maybe it's not sustainable for the course. And what I found was I questioned, why is it that I don't want to make these calls? There's a part of me that realizes that it is the idea, the plan in relation to my definite chief aim. Yet there's a part of me, we can say, and what is that part of me? Well, it's not really a part of you. It's a belief that one is identified with in mind. Who you are transcends the mind. One is identified with the belief in which it is experienced that way. It's a force-based experience to make those phone calls. So I changed the inner conversation around those experiences. I said, I love making sales calls. I love working with prospects and clients to discover their pains, their needs, their desires, their frustrations, so I could provide wonderful solutions to them. I have wonderful solutions. They're excited to have these phone calls because they get to have someone that they can have a conversation with about what their pains, needs, desires, and frustrations are. And maybe they don't have people like that in their lives. And they get to have a conversation with someone who provides a solution. And I'm not going to force the solution. If it's a match, it's a match. And if it's not a match, I'm going to optimize. Maybe I'll approach different prospects, or maybe I'll come back with another offer, a different proposition. As soon as I turned those into auto-suggestions and accepted those suggestions, what I noticed was I started to enjoy the process. Same thing with leadership, same thing with every aspect of the journey to actualizing the vision. And then what happens is one says, well, Joseph, you got a lot of willpower. You can just repeatedly do the same thing again and again and again and not get tired of it. I'll say, because it's the way I'm going about doing things. I'm doing it from a state of flow because I'm not identified with beliefs where it feels like I have to force myself to do something. So persistence, you could say, is automatic to the degree of acceptance of the end and the different aspects of the journey to actualizing the vision. He says, those who have cultivated the habit of persistence seem to enjoy insurance against failure. No matter how many times they are defeated, they finally arrive up to the top of the ladder. So what he's saying here is that the word failure, we have all these associated meanings to it. The word rejection, we might have all these associated meanings to it. Is it in harmony and in contribution to your vision? We're the ones assigning meaning to experiences. As mentioned, we're the only one that can consciously suggest each moment during experience what that experience means to us. And that is what we're thinking feelingly upon and impressing upon the subconscious mind. That is what we're suggesting to ourselves. We're the ones that could either allow a suggestion. We actually determine our suggestions, whether we're aware of it or not, prior to being impressed upon the subconscious mind. We have all the ability to do that. And we have all the power. It's within. All the power is within. The power simply takes what you imagine, what you believe to be true, and externalizes it both as the vision actualized and the different experiences on the journey to actualizing the vision. Simply put, one can get to actualizing entrepreneurial success or business success or sales success or whatever career success from a state of fun, flow, bliss, and ease, or from a state of frustration, stress, or whatever else. What's the difference between the two? You and I know different. The formless self transcends beliefs. That's what I mean. You and I know different. The I, the formless self, transcends mind, transcends body, transcends the beliefs in mind. So you are not different. We are life itself. And we choose how to experience life, what to experience in life through imagination. It says how to develop persistence. Number one, a definite purpose backed by a burning desire for its fulfillment. So you have a burning desire to achieve something. You have definite purpose. You're going to move towards actualizing that vision automatically. If a person procrastinates, they will acknowledge that they're procrastinating and then say, is this an ideal behavior? Is this how I imagine myself ideally? Because the desire will stimulate that in imagination, how they see themselves ideally, and they'll reimagine it. Number two, a definite plan expressed in continuous action. The plans are received within. You genuinely want to do it. If there's resistance to doing it, bring awareness to that resistance, release identification to it. I've worked with so many salespeople over the years and increased their success by actually bringing awareness to these beliefs in which they were procrastinating, or we could say lacking persistence in making the sales calls, having the conversations in a certain way, making the offer, all the different nuances to sales. They had resistance towards it because they were identified with beliefs that was resulting in resistance. And so they already knew what they were going to do, the continuous action, yet they were generating resistance to it. So I simply brought awareness to these beliefs and released identification to them. They brought awareness to these beliefs through self-talk, through conversations. We brought awareness, auto-suggestions, and then they were able to do it from a state of fun, bliss, and flow, and thus expressed continuous action, automatic, flow-based, on the journey to actualizing the vision. Number three, a mind closed tightly against all negative and discouraging influences, including negative suggestions of relatives, friends, and acquaintances. Everything is just a mere suggestion. The question is, do you accept a suggestion or not? It's really up to you. You choose what you want to accept. You have full ability to choose. You always have the ability to choose what you want to accept as true. We ask the question, is this helpful or not? Any impression, that which we think feelingly upon, impressed upon the subconscious mind, some way, somehow, materializes. So when he says a mind closed tightly, it's not referring to closing off your mind to infinite intelligence and all the ways to actualizing your vision that are received within. It's referring to negative influences. And by negative influences, remember, we're the only ones that can suggest within what is positive or negative. And if something does not feel resonant with how you are ideally, let it pass. If thoughts of disharmony arise in mind, for whatever the reason may be, a lot of times they're from past beliefs identified with. Don't identify with the thoughts. Remain focused on what you're doing. The way I do this very practically is I focus on one task at a time and do it from a state of flow. And someone might look at me and say, you're very persistent. I do one task at a time from a state of flow and see it all the way to completion. Then I go on to the next one, the next one, the next one. Yeah, I take some breaks. I have fun. I enjoy my life. I do all these things. But I don't procrastinate. I persist, you could say. And it's because I persisted in my imagination of already being, this is a net result, that's a manifestation of persisting in my imagination as already being that which I desire to be, autosuggestion. The behaviors flow automatically as a revelation of what we're imagining. We're revealing to ourselves. What have we imagined? What do we believe to be true? And it's very apparent, no shame in condemnation. Yet, we can choose how we relate to experiences now, how we behave now, and change it accordingly. Now is where all the power is. And now is where the opportunity is to reimagine, to suggest to ourselves, autosuggestion. And what happened with that persistence of imagining ideally, wherever you are, everything flows automatically. He says persistence is a state of mind. Therefore, it can be cultivated. Like all states of mind, persistence is based upon definite causes, among them these. Number one, definiteness of purpose. Number two, let's go to the definiteness of purpose. He says, knowing what one wants is the first and perhaps the most important step towards development of persistence. A strong motive forces one to surmount many difficulties. And he uses the word forces. I like to say you flow through seeming difficulties because the burning desire. If you fall down, you get back up. I actually want to discuss the book, The 50th Law by 50 Cent, because it's all about transmuting emotions. And he shares many stories, wonderful. I come from a background where there was a lot of challenges growing up, troubling situations, traumatic situations, fights in school, all kinds of things that are not pleasant. And I've seen a lot of things, violence, stuff that kids shouldn't see. And it built up, we could say, a lot of anger in me. And during the earlier stages, it used to get me in a little bit of trouble. It could have gotten me in more trouble. Some of my friends ended up with criminal records. It was not a pleasant thing. Now, at some point, I transmuted that. I took that energy. I didn't suppress it or repress it. I transmuted it towards earning money, towards the service to others. And I still transmute energy towards or emotion, because emotions are simply energy in motion. We're the ones giving meaning to it. This emotion means that emotion means this. We're the ones giving meaning to it. We could transmute by assigning meaning, service to others. This, what I feel right now, this anger, this frustration, I'm not going to hold it in. I'm going to transmute it to the love of what I do, to this wonderful service to others that I'm doing right now. Then we have desire, which we talk about. Self-reliance, belief in one's ability to carry out a plan, encourages one to follow the plan through with persistence. Definiteness of plans, organized plans, even though they may be weak and entirely impractical, encourage persistence. See, as mentioned, if you just take something and see it all the way to completion, and then you move on to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing, that is practical proof of your self-confidence. That is right there, proof that you commit to something and see it all the way to completion. Nowadays, and I would say even was like that before, it just seems like that to me now, that it's easier and faster to create entrepreneurial success, career success, sales success. I meet a lot of people that earn a lot of money, that all one does is just simply commit. Just commit and see it all the way through. Just make the phone calls. Just send out the emails. Just put up the website. Just put up the product or service. And repeatedly just do the same thing again and again and again from a state of flow, because you know that that's the thing to do. Accurate knowledge. Knowing that one's plans are sound based on experience or observation encourages persistence. So, optimization happens on the journey to actualizing the vision. You do something, you observe the effects of what happened, you optimize it further. Maybe you look for some advice, maybe you watch some videos, maybe you read a book on how to optimize whatever that is, and then you optimize it. Let's say you're dealing with a client and the experience wasn't pleasant for the client afterwards, they weren't happy with it. Maybe then you optimize your communication skills. Maybe you get a certain degree of clarity prior to working with the client so expectations are met. Maybe you learn how to deliver service in a little different way that it's more pleasing for the client. All of that, beyond shame and condemnation, is simply optimization data for your benefit so that you can acquire specialized knowledge, and you'll even attract the people to help you with that, the information to help you with that. Next, we have cooperation. Sympathy, understanding, and harmonious cooperation with others tends to develop persistence. Willpower, the habit of concentrating one's thoughts upon the building of plans for the attainment of definite purpose, leads to persistence. So essentially, guard your subconscious mind and keep your thoughts on what is in harmony and contribution to your vision, and form a habit doing it. It gets easier and easier to do it, and then you appear as someone that has all this willpower. But nevertheless, you know inside that you are genuinely doing what you love to do. You're doing it from a state of flow. And if there's any resistance to doing the things that you genuinely want to do, bring awareness to the belief and release identification to it. Then we got habit. Persistence is the direct result of habit. The mind absorbs and becomes part of the daily experiences. Fear can be effectively cured by repetition of acts of courage. Anyone who has seen active service in war knows this. Repetition of acts of courage. So, whatever is the courageous act, whatever it is, I just do it. As we say sometimes, the cave we fear to enter holds the treasure we seek. So if it's a cave that I fear to enter that holds the treasure that I seek, I just repeatedly do that thing, again and again and again, till I transmute that fear into courage, or joy, or excitement, or something like that. I mentioned many times I used to teach these speed reading workshops in the earlier stages. There used to be a lot of anxiety building up to when I used to teach them on Saturday and Sunday. Build up on Monday, all the way up to Thursday and Friday, a lot of anxiety. I just kept suggesting to myself how I experienced that from a state of fun, flow, joy, ease, joyousness, And then the emotions were transmuted. So rather than feeling anxiety build up towards the end of the week, excitement build up to the end of the week. And it was going in the direction of, let's say, was a cave that I feared to enter. But yet I did it again and again and again through repetition, acts of courage. And what does this do? Well, it translates into so many things, because one of the things it translated to was my ability to put myself out there and not be afraid of what other people think of me. That was not the case in the earlier stages. Now I speak about what I feel like speaking about. I genuinely articulate the way I want to articulate, what I want to articulate, but this wasn't the case before. Back in the days, I used to look around before I would communicate something and see if others are communicating, should I say it this way or that way? And if people aren't communicating in the way that I felt was authentic, I wouldn't communicate. And then I would just accept it. Like, okay, that's how it's going to be. That's not how it's going to be. That's the way I imagined it is. That's just belief playing out. All we do is simply release identification to that belief. By how? By simply saying that the cave we fear to enter holds the treasure we seek. I'm going to do the thing that is courageous. I enjoy doing it. I have fun doing it. I'm going to transmute this emotion into one of joy, bliss, and ease. And nothing wrong with neither of the emotions. I just choose to experience it that way. Chapter 10 is the power of the mastermind. He says, power is essential for success in the accumulation of money. Plans are inert and useless without sufficient power to translate them into action. This chapter will describe the method by which an individual may attain and apply power. Very specific here, the way he defines it. He says, power may be defined as organized and intelligently directed knowledge. So it may be different than the other definitions of power. This is how he refers to it again. Power may be defined as organized and intelligently directed knowledge. Power, as the term is here used, refers to organized effort sufficient to enable an individual to transmute desire into its monetary equivalent. Organized effort is produced through the coordination of effort of two or more people who work toward a definite end in a spirit of harmony. Power is required for the accumulation of money. Power is necessary for the retention of money after it has been accumulated. He says, let us ascertain how power may be acquired. If power is organized knowledge, so again, the definition, if power is organized knowledge, let us examine the sources of knowledge. Number one, infinite intelligence. Again, the source of it all within is the number one source for knowledge, and accurate knowledge in relation to your vision, because there's infinity knowledge. What we're interested in is the key, accurate knowledge in relation to our vision. You're building a business, for example, many ways to market, many ways to sell, operations, many ways of running your operations, finances, many tools, resources, ways of doing finances, sales, marketing, innovation, leadership, finance. Now, all of this insights on how to optimize all these areas, which also include invention and innovation, is sourced from within, infinite intelligence. He says, infinite intelligence, the source of knowledge, may be contacted through the procedure described in another chapter with the aid of creative imagination. The accumulated experience of us, or that portion of it which has been organized and recorded. Experiment and research. In the field of science and practically every other walk of life, we are gathering, classifying, and organizing new facts daily. This is the source to which one must turn when knowledge is not available through accumulated experience. Here, too, the creative imagination must often be used. If our plans are comprehensive, and if they contemplate large proportions, we must generally induce others to cooperate with us before we can inject into them the necessary element of power. So these are some of the ways that he proposes that we can accumulate or bring awareness to information, knowledge, and specifically what we're interested in here is organized knowledge, that which is in harmony with our vision. And we can also do it with a mastermind. So he says the mastermind may be defined as coordination of knowledge and effort in a spirit of harmony between two or more people for the purpose of attaining a definite chief aim. so you may better understand the intangible potentialities of power available to you through a properly chosen mastermind group. We will here explain the two characteristics of the mastermind principle, one of which is economic in nature and the other psychic. The economic feature is obvious. Economic advantages may be created by any person who surrounds themselves with the advice, counsel, and personal cooperation of a group of individuals who are willing to lend them wholehearted aid in a spirit of perfect harmony. This form of cooperative alliance has been the basis of nearly every great fortune. Your understanding of this great truth may definitely determine your financial status. The psychic phase of the mastermind principle is much more abstract, much more difficult to comprehend because it has reference to the spiritual forces with which the human race as a whole is not well acquainted. You may catch a significant suggestion from this statement. No two minds ever come together without thereby creating a third, invisible, intangible force which may be likened to a third mind. Now, we've experienced this many times, and this is why it's helpful to have wonderful relationships with others, is when two people appear in the same room and they have a nice, harmonious conversation, ideas arise. They seem to connect to the source together and pull ideas from the source, and is facilitated by this mastermind. Yes, a person certainly can do this themselves. Infinite intelligence is accessible at any moment. Yet on my journey, primarily in the earlier stages, it was beneficial for me to be around others that I felt were helpful in inspiring that third mind to arise. And it was very apparent when I was communicating with people. So as I was going around, what I would do is I would note down the different kinds of experiences that I would have with the different people that I was connecting with. And I was very aware of the conversations with individuals where I felt that I was experiencing very easily this third mind arise. And so then I would actively plan on meeting with them on a regular basis, because I knew that every time that I would have one of these conversations with them, a mastermind, I would get these wonderful insights and perspectives. Intuition would arise, and it would be in spirit of harmony with both. One of the characteristics that I noticed was there was a genuine interest of helping out the other person, helping them realize their goals, their visions, their definite chief aim, and being in harmony and contribution with their goals, their visions, their definite chief aims. What I also noticed was there was a genuine interest in them being in harmony and in contribution to my vision. When this harmony was there, ideas would naturally arise. We would allow them to arise, and it would be a very fun, flow-based conversation. At times, we would record these conversations. And that's one of the ways that I felt inspired in the conversation that I had with Ed and Ruben, who also, by the way, love Think and Grow Rich and thank Think and Grow Rich for their successes. I noticed, and you might have noticed this as well, as we were having the mastermind conversations, and that's why I didn't call it interviews. I saw it more of a conversation. When we were having these conversations, which were mastermind conversations, I also got many insights and perspectives that arose in the conversations. Many have reported to me, I got many emails saying that they too got these insights that arose from these conversations. Again, I'll link to in the description to those videos. And I remember doing that event, as mentioned earlier, with the Napoleon Hill Institute, and it was the same experience with everyone there. So many insights, so many perspectives, so many new ways of looking at the world, my definite chief aim, were shared because everybody was there in a spirit of harmony. And that's the power of the mastermind. Number 11, the mystery of sex transmutation. He says, the meaning of the word transmute is in simple language the changing or transmuting of one element or form of energy into another. I recently did a discussion on alchemical transmutation, emotional transmutation, with the book The Kabbalion, which I'll link to in the description, last week. Now, The Kabbalion was an interesting book because when I discovered Think and Grow Rich, I wanted to know what this word transmute means. Transmutation. It's a sex transmutation. Where does he get this word from, transmutation? And that actually brought me into alchemy. It brought me to the book Kabbalion and other sources of text on alchemy. And then I realized where this information derives from. So let's discuss this further. Sex transmutation is simple and easily explained. It means the switching of the mind from thoughts of physical expression to thoughts of some other nature. This is something that we all have the ability to do, is to be able to take this powerful energy, sexual energy, and transmute it into a service to others, transmute it into a creative expression. It does not mean suppress, repress the desire or any desire that we've been discussing. It means transmute the desire into a creative expression. It's an art. He says, the transmutation of sex energy calls for the exercise of willpower, to be sure, but the reward is worth the effort. So again, it's the belief that sex energy must be transmuted towards physical expression only. That's one way of doing things, and it's certainly not discouraging that. What is being encouraged here is that it can also be, a portion of it can be also transmuted towards creative expression. I've noticed this myself. When I applied this principle, which again, in the earlier stages didn't make any sense to me, it took me a little while to understand this to a deep degree. Nevertheless, with practice, I realized that by taking this energy that was building up, and rather than seeking a physical outlet exclusively, I would say, I'm going to, in relation to this outcome that I want, which is a physical expression, imagine it being transmuted over to this creative expression, whatever it may be. In the entrepreneurial journey, it could be the sales calls, it could be building the business, the initiatives, etc. This burning desire fuels the journey to complete certain initiatives. I know many that translate this wonderful energy into working out at the gym, many different forms of creative expression. He says the transmutation of sex energy calls for the exercise of willpower. So it gets easier to do when we release the identification to beliefs that it has to be a physical outlet. It can be a creative outlet. He says the desire for sexual expression is inborn and natural. The desire cannot and should not be submerged or eliminated, but it should be given an outlet through forms of expression which enrich the body, mind, and spirit. If not given this form of outlet through transmutation, it will seek outlets through purely physical channels, which again are former beliefs, where one may believe that this is the only way to express this energy. And why this is the case that transmutation works so well and perfectly is what he says here. The human mind responds to stimulation. Among the greatest and most powerful of these stimuli is the urge of sex. The reality of a sixth sense has been fairly well established. This sixth sense is creative imagination. The faculty of creative imagination is one where the majority of people never use during an entire lifetime, and if used at all. He says, a relatively small number of people use with deliberation and purpose, a forethought, the faculty of creative imagination. Those who use this faculty voluntarily and with understanding of its function are genii. Very powerful, very nuanced. When the emotion arises, acknowledge, imagine, transmute it over to a performance of a service or creative expression. What you'll notice is that it actually does transmute into a creative expression. You'll notice your creative expression, it could say, expressed to a higher degree of nuance, of creativity. What you may also channel this energy towards is exercise or working out or the various things that you know you want to do on the journey to actualizing the vision, such as sales calls, building the business, etc. Leadership, transmutation. And then when you see the actual performance of the transmutation, then you also build this relationship with yourself, and you're able to do this easier and easier and easier. Some even seek to build up this energy and then creatively express it. So they do things to actively build up this energy. Now, for some, this might be very suffering-induced, let's say, because they don't want to have this desire, or they only believe that they can physically express it. And so building up this desire can feel very tormenting to them. That's because they have not learned to the degree the art of transmutation. William Walker Atkinson actually talks about this. He actually talks about stimulating desire, raising it up, building it up, and then transmuting it. Now, this also brings forth higher degrees of creativity, access, and creative imagination. He says love, romance, and sex are all emotions capable of driving us to heights of superachievement. Love is the emotion which serves as a safety valve and ensures balance, poise, and constructive effort. When combined, these three emotions may lift one to an attitude of a genius. So again, love, romance, and sex infused together harmoniously and transmuted. We will notice a few things. It'll be transmuted into wonderful service, creative expressions. And also, you'll notice that creative imagination, ideas flow in your mind. So it's important then to not suppress or repress this energy. To also acknowledge that you can also, beyond physical expression, allow this energy to carry you into creative imagination, where you can pull wonderful invention, creative solutions by applying the art of sex transmutation. Chapter 12 is the subconscious mind. He says, the subconscious mind consists of a field of consciousness in which every impulse of thought that reaches the objective mind through any of the five senses is classified and recorded, and from which thoughts may be recalled or withdrawn as letters may be taken from a filing cabinet. It receives and files sense impressions or thoughts, regardless of their nature. You may voluntarily plant in your subconscious mind any plan, thought, or purpose which you desire to translate into its physical or monetary equivalent. When a thought is persisted upon, it becomes a belief. If you persist upon that belief, what happens is it rises up to a deeper level of conviction. You hold that belief to a deeper level of conviction. And none of these beliefs are fixed in mind. If the subconscious mind is, as he says here, classifies and records thoughts, and these thoughts becoming beliefs, the unseen power takes those thoughts and externalizes them for you. If the subconscious mind stores them, then we can change what's in the subconscious mind. We can release the identification to beliefs in the subconscious mind. Emotions, thoughts, behaviors, outer world experiences all arise from the one cause within, the infinite intelligence within the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is where we store what we have selected, imagined to be true, and impressed, we could say, upon the subconscious mind, or stored in the filing cabinet, as he says. And just as we placed these thoughts, which became beliefs, in there, we can change them through autosuggestion. And as you are the only conscious suggester, whether you practice it or not, in relation to appearances, you can be aware of, in relation to appearances, via your thoughts, emotions, and experiences, what is in your subconscious mind. And if it is not considered desirable, you can release identification to it. For example, if one becomes reactive to an experience, just in a moment prior to becoming reactive, they can realize that they are becoming reactive to a belief in the subconscious mind that could about to play out in behaviors to be a certain way, body being experienced a certain way, emotions being experienced a certain way in relation to that belief. And they could release, go back into the silence, the stillness, release, abide in that stillness for a moment. And they don't identify with that belief. Through the repetition of doing this, maybe a few times, maybe a handful of times, maybe more, what happens is a person no longer identifies with that belief in relation to that experience. For example, in business, if a person identifies with, let's say, a belief of, I am not good enough when it comes to rejection, they are about to identify with it. They can sense when they're about to identify with it. And in that moment, return to the stillness. And what happens? They still move forward with the initiative, whatever it is. They're just not doing it in a way where they're identified with that belief. And through the repetition of doing this, they reprogram the subconscious mind. And by that I mean, in this regard, release identification to the beliefs that are not in harmony with how they truly desire to be. Now, another important thing when it comes to this power of your subconscious mind is infinite intelligence within your subconscious mind takes what you have, either knowingly or unknowingly, allowed into your subconscious mind or further encouraged in relation to experiences that are manifestations of revealing what's within the subconscious mind. Whatever you consciously accept, you continue to accept that that's the way it is. You're impressing it on the subconscious mind. And so he says, the subconscious mind works day and night through a method of procedure unknown to us. The subconscious mind draws upon the forces of infinite intelligence for the power with which it voluntarily transmutes one's desires into their physical equivalent, making use always of the most practical media by which this end may be accomplished. This is important. It is key to suggest, autosuggest, our vision, and all the different aspects in relation to the journey to actualizing the vision, to be in harmony with the vision so that you can experience a flow-based journey to actualizing that vision. Because whatever you impress upon the subconscious mind will work with whatever, making use always of the most practical media, which includes environment, experiences, relationships, whatever, to play out the theater of those beliefs, to reveal what you have identified with. And he says there is plenty of evidence to support the belief that the subconscious mind is the connecting link between the finite mind and infinite intelligence. Because some way, somehow, these beliefs, these thoughts that we're identified with, play out as the experiences of life. Some way, somehow, the world is animated. Again, there's only one universal power, and it is within I am. What do we say of the I am within us? What we say of the I am within us, what we imagine, what we think feelingly upon of the I am within us, plays out as the experiences. As we continue to play out those experiences and identify further with those experiences, we form a deeper level conviction to those beliefs. Now, when you have a vision, a definite chief aim, a burning desire to be who you truly desire to be, in which you say, I have X amount of dollars in my bank account, or whatever it is, in exchange for this product or service that benefits the lives of others. That is your authentic way of being. Your true way of being is love, happiness, fulfillment, bliss, prosperity. That's your true way of being. You're accepting that I am that way. And what happens then is that some way, somehow, infinite intelligence takes what you've accepted as true, which you consider to be authentic and true, and plays out the experiences, the journey to actualizing the vision and the vision actualized. We simply allow it to happen. And by allow it to happen means we release identification to beliefs where we're generating force and restriction to not allowing it to happen by bringing awareness to them and releasing them. Now, as mentioned, you can release identification to the beliefs by not identifying with them anymore, abiding as the stillness if you're about to react to the beliefs. You can also do it with autosuggestion. For example, if one sees themselves as not worthy to realizing the goal in their imagination, in other words, they're not accepting it, that it really is that way, and thus generating resistance to accepting it, they can say, I realize that who I am already is love, happiness, fulfilled. Thus, being that, I am deserved of that. Or whatever kind of phraseology and ways of wording with that implies that you are already that. Because then what happens that when you read your autosuggestion, you can look at that and say, I am that. That's the way that I am. And then it appears that way. I am appears as and animates all that appears to reflect what has been imagined. That is the case with prayer. Pray as though you already have it, as he says here. prayer does sometimes result in the realization of that which one prays. If you ever had the experience of receiving that which you prayed, go back to your memory and recall your actual state of mind while you were praying, and you will know for sure that the theory here described is more than a theory. So pray as though you already have. I have it, like that's the way it is. That leaves an impression on the subconscious mind. Think feelingly upon it. Some like to mix emotions with it or whatever to bring yourself into the feeling. Do whatever works for you to bring yourself into the feeling of already having. The impression on the subconscious mind is made, and it appears that way. He says the time will come when the schools and educational institutions of the country will teach the science of prayer. Moreover, then prayer may be and will be reduced to a science. When that time comes, it will come as soon as we are ready for it and demands it. No one will approach the universal mind in a state of fear, for the very good reason that there is no such emotion as fear, ignorance, superstition, and false teaching will have disappeared, and we'll have attained our true status as a child of infinite intelligence. A few have already attained this blessing, and you can attain this blessing by applying this philosophy. As mentioned, through applying the philosophy and applying it again and again and again. Every definite chief aim I realized I did this again and again and again. The mind is purified. As the mind is purified, you realize the self. You realize the true nature of the self. And number 3, you actualize the true nature of the self. And pray as though you already have it becomes easier and easier. It becomes, you could say, easier to impress the subconscious mind because you don't have resistance, which is generated by beliefs of resistance to already being who you truly desire to be. On the surface, it may sound silly, but in experience, it's understandable that the resistance of not accepting ourselves for being who we truly desire to be may be there, which again is spawned from beliefs. As those beliefs are released by persistence in the autosuggestion, by abiding as the stillness, as mentioned, by bringing awareness to the beliefs and releasing identification to them through autosuggestion, a person allows themselves to be who they truly desire to be. He says there are no toll gates between the finite mind and infinite intelligence. The communication costs nothing except patience, faith, persistence, understanding, and a sincere desire to communicate. Moreover, the approach can be made only by the individual themselves. The method by which you may communicate with infinite intelligence is very similar to that through which the vibration of sound is communicated by radio. If you understand the working principle of radio, you will, of course, know that sound cannot be communicated through the ether until it has been stepped up or changed into a rate of vibration which the human ear cannot detect. The radio sending station picks up the sound of the human voice and scrambles or modifies it by stepping up the vibration millions of times. Only in this way can the vibration of sound be communicated through the ether. After this transmission has taken place, the ether picks up the energy, which originally was in the form of vibrations or of sounds, carries that energy to radio receiving stations, and these receiving sets step up that energy back down to its original rate of vibration, so it's recognized as sound. The subconscious mind is the intermediary which translates one's prayers into terms which infinite intelligence can recognize. So the subconscious mind takes care of those things, stepping up the vibrations, etc. It's done for you. Prayer, which is autosuggestion, is acceptance that you already have what you desire, as mentioned. This can be done in relation to your vision and also in relation to whatever appears on the journey to actualizing your vision, to create a more harmonious, flow-based journey to actualizing your vision. I learned this because, remember, as I mentioned, I first came from a background of, or you could say I was identified with beliefs in which it appeared that force was the way, stress, frustration was the way to actualize money. I then began to purify the mind from those beliefs. I realized that it was also possible to be had from a state of fun, flow, joy, bliss, ease, doing what I love to do, what I genuinely love to do, so that I show up each day with each initiative and pour my heart into it, love it, enjoy what I do. And that became my experience because I was no longer identified with those former beliefs. He says, understand this principle and you will know why mere words read from a prayer book cannot and will never serve as an agency of communication between the mind of us and infinite intelligence. So, the subconscious mind, which is the intermediary, which translates one's prayer into terms which infinite intelligence can recognize, presents the message. So we want to get it into the subconscious mind. He says, before your prayer will reach infinite intelligence, it probably is transformed into its original thought vibration, into terms of spiritual vibration. Faith is the only known agency which will give your thoughts a spiritual nature. Faith and fear make poor bedfellows. Where one is found, the other cannot exist. Now, what is fear? Well, is the result of identification to specific beliefs, which he categorized later on, which we'll talk about, called the 6 basic fears. Know for now that prayer or autosuggestion prior to sleep and state akin to sleep, prior to sleep, is a space where we're not identified with beliefs. And we can accept the suggestion, which then when we accept the suggestion, it purifies the mind from the other beliefs, which we can call fear-based beliefs. And if one experiences fear on the journey to actualizing a vision, the definite chief aim, bring awareness to the belief that's generating the experience of fear. Emotions are energy in motion. Allow them to be by not identifying with fear-based beliefs on the journey to actualizing the vision. Example would be, a person is afraid to put themselves out on social media. There's a belief behind that experience of fear or the emotion of fear. What is the belief? You question it, and the belief is something like, people will not accept me for communicating this message. I say, is the message authentic and true? Yes, it's authentic and true. So then why wouldn't they accept it? And then they may have a story. They may say, people in the past didn't accept me when I shared these messages. So we have a conversation about it. And I say, as a result of that conversation, let's create an auto-suggestion that says, I put out a message. People who are ready to receive that message appear joyously receiving that message as it benefits them and it also benefits me. This is how it appears to play out because I accept myself. I let others be, they let me be, and together we allow ourselves to be how we truly desire to be, or something like that. As they accept this suggestion, they release identification to that fear-based belief that is generating the experience of emotions being related to that way. Again, emotions are energy in motion, and we filter them through lenses of beliefs. If we don't identify with the belief in which emotions are experienced as fear, they can get transmuted. So, for example, through that auto-suggestion, a person might then feel excitement towards connecting or putting out the information. Chapter 13, the brain. He says, Dr. Alexander Bell and Dr. Elmer R. Gates observed that every human brain is both a broadcasting and receiving station for the vibration of thought. Thought, the medium of the ether, in a fashion similar to that employed by the radio broadcasting principle. Every human brain is capable of picking up vibrations of thought which are being released by other brains. This is how we connect with each other. This is how we send information together. When you have a desire, I always say, the desire is already fulfilled. Others appear to reflect that desire. For example, you have a desire to create a product or service. You know that product or service is beneficial. Some way, somehow, people pick up on that. They start to show up. I've seen this many times. I have this idea that I'm going to do something. All of a sudden, people show up. Many times I've gone to California, I've noticed this. I book a flight, and then I'm about to go the week, let's say prior, clients and people start messaging me and saying, when's the next time you're going to be in California? They had no idea I was going to be in California from, let's say, visible means, because I didn't share it on social media. I didn't tell anyone about it. But yet they picked it up. And so we end up meeting up. And what's interesting is when we end up meeting up, they're in exact alignment with the vision and the definite chief aim in a mutually beneficial way. He says, in connection with the statement in the preceding paragraph, compare and consider the description of the creative imagination as outlined in the chapter of imagination. The creative imagination is the receiving set of the brain, which receives thoughts released by the brains of others. It is the agency of communication between one's conscious or reasoning mind and the four sources from which one may receive thought stimuli. When stimulated or stepped up to a high rate of vibration, the mind becomes more receptive to the vibration of thought which reaches it through the ether from outside sources. The stepping up process takes place through the positive emotions or negative emotions. Through the emotions, the vibrations of thought may be increased. My brain is only a receiver in the universe. There is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration, was a quote from Nikola Tesla that I thought I'd throw in. So we know that everything already exists now. The source is here now. We access it within. We go within and access it. By imagining that we already have what we desire, and in relation to experiences, when we think feelingly upon it, we step up to receive that particular knowledge that already exists, which is specialized knowledge. And we also draw upon the mastermind. People, environment, circumstance, information, all these things transform to reflect what we have accepted, the autosuggestion. And it happens some way, somehow. Here's something that Nikola Tesla said that is a good reminder. Our brain is only a receiver. In the universe, there's a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. All arise from the one source, appear animated from the one source, and animated by the one source. There's only one cause that is within. So what do we say of the cause? He says, operation by your mental broadcasting station is a comparatively simple procedure. But you have three principles to bear in mind when you wish to use your broadcasting station: the subconscious mind, creative imagination, and autosuggestion. The stimuli through which you put these three principles into action have been described. The procedure begins with desire. So everything begins with a desire. You desire, you accept that you already have it. That impresses the subconscious mind. You do it with autosuggestion, any form of autosuggestion. You set the intention, like that's the way it is. That's autosuggestion. Pray as though you already have it. Then the creative imagination, some way, somehow takes that and gives you hunches, plans, inspiration, does everything. People appear to be in harmony and contribution. All of a sudden, you start to get support. You simply allow it to happen. The only way it does not seem like it's allowed to happen is through illusions of control, which are beliefs. And so we bring awareness to these beliefs and we release identification to them. So the sixth sense is where we pull this from the one source. We're all pulling it from the one source. So thus you have the ability to do this within, so you're a genius. We all have this within ourselves, the ability to do this. I would recommend not identifying with any beliefs that suggest that you do not have access to the infinite intelligence within you. To believe that the infinite intelligence is outside and you need to seek externally for it is to result in those experiences and appearances. And what is being suggested here is creative imagination. You can go within and get it. And again, all this happens automatically from accepting the autosuggestion, which is why he mentioned it earlier. Everything is about, you could say, these three key aspects. That's why they're my three favorite chapters of the book, which one of them I'm going to talk about next. The subconscious mind, creative imagination, and autosuggestion. Chapter 14 is the sixth sense. He says, the 13th principle is known as the sixth sense, through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. This principle is the apex of the philosophy. So consider this: intuition, answers, hunches, inspirations, plans, everything received within. You listen to yourself, you trust yourself to a really high degree, because as you've been applying these principles, you're noticing that you do find these things within yourself. That which perhaps were areas that you would seek outside, you would find it within yourself. Also, you may notice that information, people, certain experiences that contribute to your vision, they appear just like that, all in harmony and in contribution. Now, when you track back to the cause within, I am, the one cause within, we see that it was related to in imagination via the autosuggestion. So via that autosuggestion, what happens is all things in harmony and in contribution appear. He says the sixth sense is that portion of the subconscious mind which has been referred to as the creative imagination. It has also been referred to as the receiving set through which ideas, plans, and thoughts flash into the mind. Now, this is key. Ideas, plans, and thoughts flash into the mind. It is recommended to stay in a state of creativity and inspiration, essentially be in your flow. Notice this. Maybe you go to walks in certain places, or after meditation, or during your mastermind, or even after your mastermind. For me, I find when I drive to certain places, or when I snowboard, or when I go to walks in certain areas, certain parks, ideas, hunches, and inspirations flash on the mind's eye. And these ideas, when I take them and apply them, produce results. Now, I remember a while back, this client deal that I was involved with, and there was a number of stories actually like this, where I was involved with a number of client initiatives in consulting, and the work in relation to the client deal started to pile on. And then what I would do is I would go for a walk, and then right away someone would pop up in my mind and say, "What? I can bring that person on board. Let's see if they're available." That person was available. And it turns out that they were looking for an opportunity like that. See, all subconscious minds are interconnected, and we want to allow to receive the hunches and inspirations within. We also would like the information of what we desire to be impressed upon the subconscious mind so that it may be sent to infinite intelligence to some way, somehow bring it forth in a nice, harmonious way. We do this when we are allowing, while we're in our flow, rather than trying to control or forcefully do things, which is just repetitively reinforcing the same beliefs that we consider to be undesirable. Now, this is something that may be challenging to understand, yet we've all experienced this in different times of our lives. Maybe some of us experience this more so than others. I experience this more so these days than before. It's important to encourage it because then what happens is then you start to experience it more so. So looking at times in your life where you've experienced this and saying, it can happen again, where just out of nowhere, the person will show up, the information will show up. That's how the law works. Some way, somehow, it appears, or something like that. Remaining in that way of being, which we call faith. As he says here, the sixth sense defies description. It cannot be described to a person who has not mastered the other principles of the philosophy, because such person has no knowledge and no experience with which the sixth sense may be compared. Now, what I say to that is, we all have the experience. We would like to ideally track back when applying this information, and perhaps even keep a journal of where we've had these kinds of experiences, where we can call them sixth sense, unexplainable ways that don't make logical sense, but yet it works. These ways, although unexplainable and considered unknown, do occur, and I find that they occur more so while we're in a state of flow. And also, if we keep the subconscious mind guarded from false impressions. Also meditation, going for walks, and essentially releasing identification to beliefs that generate mental chatter, releasing the mental chatter. This allows the still small voice from the silence to arise and provide the information, the hunches, inspiration, or ideas via the sixth sense. He says, understanding of the sixth sense comes only by meditation through mind development from within. The sixth sense probably is the medium of contact between the finite mind and infinite intelligence. And for this reason, it is a mixture of both the mental and spiritual. It is believed to be the point at which the mind of the human contacts the universal mind. So we're all one with the universal mind, the mind of the all. And we access it through the silence. So thus, it is key then to release the mental chatter, abide as the stillness, be in a state of flow, do things and live in a way which allows for receptivity of the sixth sense to guide the way. He says, through the aid of the sixth sense, you'll be warned of impending dangers in time to avoid them. I've noticed this many times. I get an intuition, I'm not going to go in that direction, I just don't go in that direction. Go in the other direction, I'm going to go in the other direction, because you're guided from within on the journey to actualizing the vision. And he even says, as brought up earlier, there comes to your aid and to do your bidding with the development of the sixth sense, a guardian angel who will open to you at all times the door of the temple of wisdom. Remember the story I mentioned earlier when I was in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, and I picked up that seashell and I said, you always do things for me. You always come to my aid. You always take care of things. That's exactly what he said, and I've read this book many times. And when I go back and read it now, it's like, well, I saw something that I didn't see before. To depart and to do your bidding. It's an interesting idea, the Holy Guardian Angel. It is part of the sixth sense. In other words, we have access to the infinite world within. And we call upon this world via our imagination through what we accept as real. And that's the autosuggestion. When the autosuggestion is accepted as the way it is in the subconscious mind, everything shows up to reveal the answers. Could be Holy Guardian Angel. And I believe that Holy Guardian Angel was, for me, part of my experiences being raised Catholic. They spoke a lot about Holy Guardian Angel. Maybe it might not be that for someone else. Maybe it'll be whatever kind of ways. Nevertheless, it's pointing to the same thing, that the answers are found within. As he says here, whether or not this is a statement of truth, you will never know except by following the instructions described in the pages of this book, or some similar methods of procedure. So I would say this became true for me. He said there's a power or a first cause. Again, there's only one cause within. One cause, I am. Or as he says, or an intelligence which permeates every atom of matter and embraces every unit of energy perceptible to us. That this infinite intelligence converts acorns into oak trees, causes water to flow down the hill in response to the law of gravity, follows night with day and winter with summer, each maintaining its proper place and relationship to the other. This intelligence may, through the principles of this philosophy, be induced to aid in transmuting desires into concrete or material form. As I mentioned, I believe that the desires are received and fulfilled and actualized by this power within. Let's talk about building character through autosuggestion. He says, being an earnest student of psychology, I knew of course, that all of us have become what we are because of our dominating thoughts and desires. I know that every deeply seated desire has the effect of causing one to seek outward expression through which that desire may be transmuted into reality. I knew that self-suggestion is a powerful factor in building character, that it is, in fact, the sole principle through which character is built. With this knowledge of the principle of mind operation, I was fairly well armed with the equipment needed in rebuilding my character. In these imaginary council meetings, so he talks about the invisible council, which I'd like to explore with you. In these imaginary council meetings, I called on my cabinet members for the knowledge I wished each to contribute, addressing myself to each member in audible words as follows. For example, Mr. Lincoln, I desire to build into my own character the keen sense of justice, the untiring spirit of patience, the sense of humor, the human understanding, and the tolerance which were your distinguishing characteristics. So what he suggests in this chapter is to create a cabinet, an invisible council of people that you admire. They could be ones that are around you, that are alive, or people from the past. We imagine them the way we remembered them, or how we imagined them to be. And we have conversations with them prior to going to sleep, and they provide different knowledge, wisdom to you. You have a conversation with them. It's a two-way conversation, a mastermind. As he says here, my original purpose in conducting council meetings with imaginary beings was solely that of impressing my own subconscious mind through the principle of autosuggestion with certain characteristics which I desired to acquire. So initially when he started doing this, it was, and I started doing this as well, and we do this often actually, where we imagine ourselves talking with people. It could be friends, family members, people that we admire, whoever. And we're communicating with each other in our imagination, and that's being impressed upon the subconscious mind. He says, in more recent years, my experimentation has taken on an entirely different trend. I now go to my imaginary counselors with every difficult problem which confronts me and my clients. The results are often outstanding, although I do not depend entirely on this form of counsel. So the same is to be said about my holy guardian angel. Ever since I was a child, I refer to and have this conversation with the holy guardian angel. I feel that I can ask any question or have any difficulty addressed and communicated very clearly as to what to do, what not to do, and it always works out through this invisible counsel within with the holy guardian angel. So certainly you could do it with an invisible counsel. It's doing a couple of things here. Number one, it is impressing upon the subconscious mind via autosuggestion the impressions of how you would like reality to appear as. Number two, you feel that you acknowledge very practically creative imagination within. You have it all within, in which answers are received within and presented to you by these invisible counsels or holy guardian angel or whatever form you choose, and prove to yourself that all answers are found within. And so that's how we work with the sixth sense, which is why it's mentioned that my favorite chapters are autosuggestion, subconscious mind, and the sixth sense, as he also mentions here in chapter 13. You have but three principles to bear in mind and to apply when you wish to use your broadcasting station: the subconscious mind, creative imagination, and autosuggestion. So essentially, the brain, as he said, is a broadcasting station. All subconscious minds are interconnected, and all interconnected and related to at the core, there's only one absolute cause, I am, within, which emanates as the individual minds, what appears as the individual minds. And through mind, the light of consciousness shines and reflects as the outer expressions of life experiences, etc., on the journey to actualizing the vision as well, etc. And we allow it to happen, and we receive it all within, the answers within, via the sixth sense. Now, it's not to say, as he mentioned as well, that there's no benefit from a mastermind or reading books or acquiring information here. It's also to acknowledge that you can do both. And so I, like he mentioned, do both. Chapter 15 is how to outwit the 6 ghosts of fear. So he says that there are 6 basic fears, or they may be categorized accordingly, which again are beliefs. Fear of poverty, fear of criticism, fear of ill health, fear of loss of love of someone, fear of old age, fear of death. When someone has fear and they question that fear, they can track it back to what is related to the one cause within via belief. It could be beliefs of poverty, beliefs of criticism, beliefs of ill health, beliefs of loss of love of someone, beliefs of old age, and beliefs of death. If these beliefs are not helpful, we can release identification to them. For example, let's say fear of poverty. A person acquires a whole bunch of money, and they might have fear that someone is going to take advantage of them and take their money. Is that a rational fear? Is that a helpful fear? That's up to the person to decide. If it's something that's creating unnecessary misery and suffering, they can suggest to themselves, everywhere I am, people approach me with harmonious deals, and I have harmonious deals with those that I connect with. My clients, my vendors, my team members, everyone around me deal in a mutually harmonious way. I'm able to feel and experience this more so wherever I am. Let's take fear of loss of love of someone. Let's say someone is in a relationship with someone, but they're identified with this belief that if this person were to leave them, they will no longer be happy. This belief can create unnecessary suffering in their life on the journey to actualizing their business success. They might be regularly worrying about losing this love, thus having a very stressful journey. And as a result of identification to this belief, which is presenting itself as the emotion of fear to be released, if a person chooses to release it. So they may have an autosuggestion like, who I love loves me, I am always in harmonious relationships, people show up in mutual harmony and in contribution, I have a wonderful relationship with name the person's name, they have a wonderful relationship with me, we have wonderful conversation and communication, and it gets better more so each day. So with the 6 basic fears, it is ideal to, if on the journey to actualizing the vision, if any of these are apparent, where we experience the emotion of fear, is we question it. We track back to the belief within. It could be related to fear of poverty, criticism, ill health, loss of love of someone, old age, or death. Whatever that belief is, write it down. No shame and condemnation when you write it down. Simply write it down. And ask yourself, is this how I see myself, ideally, in relation to my definite chief aim? If not, how do I see myself in relation to this belief? And then the autosuggestion is provided. You go within. You can bring this to invisible counsel, or you can bring it to your mastermind. Again, no shame in condemnation. Say, I seem to be identified with this particular belief. What's a better way of looking at this? And then someone will share with you, or you'll receive the idea within of how to see it. Turn it into autosuggestion and repeat it to yourself until you've accepted that that's the way it is. So the devil's workshop. He says, it is so subtle that its presence often is not detected. It is more deeply seated and more often fatal than all of the 6 spheres. For want of a better name, let us call this susceptibility to negative influences. So there are 3 keys for considering this. So there are 3 keys to applying this successfully, very practically. Number 1, he says, keep your mind closed against all people who depress or discourage you in any way. It's to acknowledge, as we mentioned earlier, that we are the only ones relating to what people say in a way where we could say that that is depressing or discouraging ourselves. Anything that a person says, any information that you come across, is completely neutral until we assign meaning to it from within and identify with that meaning. Number 2, deliberately seek the company of people who can influence you to think and act for yourself. This is one of my biggest takeaways of this book with Think and Grow Rich. Thinking and acting for yourself. Because you already know what you desire. You have a burning desire to achieve it. You commit to that vision, like that's the way it is. You allow it to happen. Answers are received within. You have a mastermind, organized plans. Everything that's covered in this book is there to help you actualize the vision. And what ends up happening is you become more self-reliant. You acknowledge that the answers are found within via 6th sense, and you begin to a higher degree, think and act for yourself. And also, when you're around others who do the same and encourage others to do the same, to think and act for themselves, they too have, and although they might not call it this, discovered that there's only one power within, and that power within is the source of all that arises and animates all that arises, and it's the source of all wisdom, and it's within each person. Number 3, do not expect troubles, as they have a tendency not to disappoint. So, guarding the subconscious mind, simply put, if we go back to this entire, let's do a grand summary of the entire book, the 3 chapters are key. Subconscious mind. What are we impressing upon the subconscious mind? Impress the autosuggestions from the premise of having on the subconscious mind your definite chief aim. And on the journey to actualizing your vision, if anything arises in relation to fear that you wouldn't consider ideal, release identification to those beliefs and impress your subconscious mind with the beliefs of what is ideally related to your vision. Number 2, guard the subconscious mind from false impressions. Be more conscious. You're always conscious of the information that you are consuming, identifying with. And to get even more accurate, the 5 sensory information is an expression of imagination, either the past in a not so ideal way or in a way that's ideally related to your vision. If anything appears to be not in harmony with your vision, you don't need to identify with it anymore. You can abide in the stillness, release identification to the belief, turn it into autosuggestion, release identification to the belief. And what does that do? It allows for creative imagination to arise, the 6th sense to arise, and any desire or emotions along the way can be transmuted over to a service to others and also allow you to access higher degrees of creativity, as he had mentioned with sexual transmutation. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an autosuggestion to further encourage. You could say, I have within me everything that I require to achieve my burning desire, by acknowledging that desire means I already have. Thus, my definite chief aim is a fact in imagination. Upon acceptance of the definite chief aim being fact in imagination, people, environments, circumstances, everything transforms by the infinite intelligence within me to reflect what I imagine. On the journey to actualizing my vision, my mind is purified as I continue to transmute all experiences to be in harmony with my vision. As I remain this way, mind is further purified as I receive within to higher degrees with vivid clarity from the still small voice within, the sixth sense, hunches, inspirations, to bring forth my vision in mutual harmony with all. Others appear to play out an ideal harmonious relationship. They are the mastermind, which I call upon as a result of accepting my vision as fact already realized in imagination, done for me by the infinite intelligence within me. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.